Good afternoon.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Nicole, I can. You want to say something or no? You just wanted to know if I could hear you. Can you hear me? Okay, I guess. Owen, are you there? No, Owen. You can hear me, right? Chandra?
Hello.
Good afternoon.
I could hear you, Miss Bullet.
Oh, okay. I'm just checking. I was wondering if Owen was there so we could start off and talk about the Stafford Sons. Since Owen gave me homework.
Yes, I'm here. And I did my research. And what I found out was that he was the Minister of Tourism. And back then, the tourist industry was a seasonal thing. It wasn't an all year round thing. And he transformed the tourist industry from just being a seasonal event to a year-round thing. So they invested in tourists coming all year round. But back then it was only seasonal. Like for example, you only had the tourists between November and maybe February or March of the following year, and the rest of the year was off season. So that's my research so far. I need to delve more. I still didn't get a clarification on how did that affect the dollar.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so very good. Yeah, you are right about the Stafford Sons. He is a part of the UBP party. And what I saw about the dollar was that in 1966, they created his party, not specifically him, created or changed, the currency because we were a Commonwealth country. And so we were using pounds. And so what he did was they, at least not him, but the UBP party implemented the B dollar, and they pegged the B dollar to the US dollar. And so that's why, it's been sustainable since then. And so because out of the entire party, I guess he was the most influential one, he gets credit for, establishing the B dollar currency and paying it to the US and carrying out the work to ensure that it became stable. And like I say today, from 1966, so we stopped using pounds and we started using dollar. I think we always used US, okay? And so a lot of countries, a Commonwealth countries weren't as established, and he, like you said, he helped with changing tourism from seasonal to becoming a value proposition. Sunshine and Sea, and 80% of our GDP came from tourism. And so when it was time to put his face on the dollar, a lot of people had a problem with that, because not only did he do all this good works, but some of the money that he made from it, should have gone into the government. He ran off with it. Somewhere in Canada, I think, or somewhere in Europe. He did a run with a lot of money. And so persons saw him as unscrupulous. And so, back there, how do you measure man? Is it by what he does right or what he does wrong? Okay. And so the people argued that for the right that he did with the assistance with establishing the B dollar currency, and having less influence from the Queen, and being more independent, which all of these things would have led up to independence in 1973. He was credited for, helping the economy drastically. So that's what I found out about the currency. Okay, so Owen, good, you good? That's sufficient information, or you could continue to do your research?
It answered my question.
Mm-hmm.
I got the same thing based on it being on par with the US and so forth. and so forth. So it answered my question a lot. Thanks.
Okay, good. You're welcome. And thank you too. It was interesting to go in and do that research and find out a little bit about history. So very good question. All right, guys. So I trust that you were having a productive week. And we had a lot of persons that would have read last week. We have more persons that sent in their homework. The first set of persons who did question 1 would have gotten their grade back, so they know if they are on track, if they're sitting comfortably in the class, or if they need to do a little more. I see I got in some more homework last week, so that's pretty good. So last week I had a long list. Almost everybody jumped into the newspapers and would have read, and so thank you so much for that. Believe it or not, we are more than halfway through this class. We are class 3. There's 1 class left in the chapters and 1 class for review. And so what will happen next week is I will pair you into groups and I will send out a review sheet. And so each group will then answer a question and bring 10 points to the review class. Now, the review class is for your benefit. It's not for Miss Bullet. And so don't expect Miss Bullet to come with all the answers. You know, I know these questions upside down, but I want you to go out and, you know, do your research, ensure that you know what the question is asking, come with a little introduction and then your 10 points. So the review class is going to be as beneficial as you make it. Now, what I've had in the past is some persons don't show up to review class even though they have a question, or they don't participate. I just didn't get to that part of the question. Okay, so the remainder of the class will suffer if you don't do your part. Okay, so it's a group effort. So, and it'll be as beneficial and informative as you make it. Okay, so like I said, next week I'll send out the review sheet and I'll put you into groups, question 1 to 10 on proposed questions that may be on the exam. Okay, so I don't have anybody with their 5% as yet, and so time is drawing nigh. So most of you would have had your first 5% for participation, and so that's a very good. So I want to hear from the persons that I didn't hear from last week that read the newspaper and want to share. Is there anybody who didn't share on the newspapers last week who want to speak this week?
Hi, Ms. Bullet. I'd like to share.
Okay, Chandra, I'm putting your name on the list. Go ahead. If somebody wanted to say, Nicole, you raise your hand. Go ahead. Before
Yes,
Chandra.
I'll share after Chandra.
Okay, so Nicole and Chandra and
Gwen will go after them, after Chandra, after Nicole, sorry.
Gwen. Okay.
Gwen, yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so go ahead, take it. Tell us what you read in the news, Chandra. Go ahead.
All right, good day. The highlight for me in the business section was the real property tax increase, where David, Molly, those were speaking about how it jumped from $4,000 to about $10,000 in fees, and the government would have used a US-based company, Tyler Technologies, to actually do the research of valuing the properties. And David Molly's query is whether or not it was legal, because when he spoke to Carl Bethel, who was the Attorney General at the time, he turned a blind eye because this US-based company is not a permanent resident of the Bahamas, and neither they have Bahamian citizenship. So how is it possible for them to actually do this assessment? Yes, ma'am. And Christina Wallace Whitfield, the president of the BREA, She has
Which is
received
what? We
numerous.
don't know what BREA is, what that is.
The Bahamas Real Estate Association. Apologies.
Thank you.
Yeah. So she would have received a lot of complaints because they would like to know exactly which valuation the Tyler Technologies would have used, because apparently there is some standard already formed that persons should be guided by. So right now, they are having, I guess the property owners will be taking a legal action for these high increase in fees. That's my share on the real property tax increase this week.
Okay, great. Very interesting topic, Chandra. Thank you for sharing. But you know, I am confused.
You're welcome.
I thought it was beneficial because they moved the amount for you to be charged. The minimum amount was 250,000, but if your house is not valued over 300,000, then you don't pay any. So I thought that was a plus. And I was saying,
yeah, I noticed they were going to move with the cap from, I think it was what, 60,000. They were removing the cap, but they're saying that the middle class would have been
right,
rated
affected.
higher.
No,
Yes,
when they remove that cap, that means nobody who has a value of 300,000 or less have to pay any taxes. And so only over that that's what I got. I have to read it again. I only scanned through it and I said, this is good. And I said, I remember when the FNM was in power, she had some say about this. So I'm surprised that the BLP would have gone and selected this outside person without, contacting the industry and the stakeholders, because that lady is very vocal. That was my thoughts, but I didn't go in there. And again, I'm sure this person, like, they use a guideline. However, is it reflective of the real estate market in the Bahamas? Now, what I want to say is, what real property tax, the government has never collected. And when VAT was coming online, we was like, we all don't need to put on a new tax that you all could even collect the tax. Fix the flaws in collecting the tax that you all already have in place. And they never ever, they poured collecting the real property tax. They say, we give you 50% off or whatever when, new governments come in place, but it's not enforced. So does it really make sense? But anyway, hopefully, this whole thing is fixed and then they actually collect the tax, because the government for some reason cannot collect real property tax. And at one point, I think Ishmael Lightborn, he used to be the head of PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers. Is it a law firm? No, it's not a law firm, it's an accounting firm. And he had ran into, like I said, imagine being the CEO of a top accounting firm in the Bahamas. He had ran into some legal problems and was in, I guess, retirement now. And his property tax was to the sum of some $300,000 that got tied up in this legal benefit. And at the time, Perry Christie was prime minister, and Perry Christie said, can we just waive that for him? We don't really need to prosecute that. We don't need to prosecute him. And so there was large outcry from everybody else who had to pay, real property tax. So again, coming from the prime minister saying there's a very rich person who is now falling on financial problems, we don't need to collect it from him. So it was, this is a never-ending story, Sean. That's what I'm trying to say. The government hasn't done a good job. I've yet to see one like that. The BLP will be able to collect this. So that person can just keep busy and go on and on and on. Okay, that's just my 5 cents. But thank you very much. Anybody else wants to add anything to that? No? Oh, yes? No? Okay, Nicole, go ahead.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. So my interesting take this week didn't necessarily come from the newspaper, but it came from the Securities Commission of the Bahamas. I started following them on social media, as one of your suggestions in the first class. And this week they released an article relative to Himalaya Exchange. And for those of you that don't know, it's an investment company that has created, I guess, like this crypto ecosystem environment where people do the foreign trading, that sort of stuff. So it was interesting to me just from the name, because ironically, an associate of mine had mentioned this name like about a week or two ago. So I decided to read it and see what our, I guess, regulators were saying about it. And apparently there had been some complaints pretty much about the fact that this company is not registrable, and there were under our I guess laws, and they were involved in some illegal activities. So the Securities Commission has an ongoing investigation going on relative to it, and they have now put out a disclaimer for anybody that's involved in their trading under this brokerage, pretty much to stop at this point. And then they also released a statement saying that the British Columbia Securities Commission had placed them on an investment caution list. So I thought it was interesting because one of the questions that I wanted to tackle for my assignment was relative to due diligence. And in doing the reading, I read about the risk factors and red flags. So I decided to take my, I guess, newfound information a little further. And in Googling it and trying to read up some more about this actual company, I learned that they had quite a few international fraud scenarios already out there under investigation. For the most part, I was a little baffled as to how much persons had engaged this company, because most of the websites or information sources that I came about kept reiterating the fact that this company was not registered under any proper litigation or, I guess, enforces. So it was just baffling to me that, I guess, the main red flag that is often mentioned when we talk about diligence and risk factors of companies, which is like, the fact of the lack of information to its shareholders and people that's partaking in business with them. I found it a little intriguing that so many people had gone in blindly, I guess, for lack of a better term, and had engaged in this company, and now they were in situations where they wanted to take legal action, but their hands were tied because the legal enforcers in their countries, their thing was, well, you were partaking in business activities with someone that's not registered any which way. So to me, I found it to be very interesting, I guess. I thought it was somewhat very ignorant of them, but it was interesting to read how people just continuously fall into the scam and not do their personal due diligence before they engage in such large transactions. So that was my interesting read for the week.
Okay, very good and very relevant to what we're going to discuss, customer due diligence in chapter 6. So very good, Nicole. But what I want to say is, I don't know if you remember the pineapple situation or the pineapple loans a few years ago. Again, the Securities Commission had to come out and say, they are not registered, do not do business, or do business at your own risk. And you saw the number of persons that were lined up. They came out with information and said that this girl had scammed persons before, and people were still lined up. And so again, these companies, first of all, anybody could go online, create a website, just say we are regulated by the Securities Commission. You have to actually go and check that and verify that. A lot of people don't get to the second step. A lot of people don't even read, and there are a lot of pyramid schemes where you have to actually go and do research. People are not doing that research. Okay, and that's and if they do it, they don't understand. But somebody tell them this is a good thing to invest in, and so they're doing it. On the investment side, the higher the risk, the more money you make. And a lot of investors who are very savvy, they don't really respect regulation. When there's a world called decentralized regulation. It's a big thing in the securities world now, where persons who deal with cryptocurrency, they either go through a regulated exchange where know your customer and due diligence policies and procedures are in place, and then there are unregulated exchanges where, of course, you would make more money, but of course the risk is high of you losing. And so it's just that this particular company probably has a good brand manager, or it's one of those companies where you invest and you bring 3 people in that pyramid scheme type of thing that never ever works out. So they prey on your ignorance. They prey on people not being able to read, and all this FX and these different schemes. You really have to do your investigation. And like I said, even when you invest, you have to watch the market, or you have to have an investment manager watching the market for you every day to make sure that where you invest is secure. If you're not prepared to do that, and you're not prepared to pay an investment manager who is going to take half of what you make, then don't invest, because it's a very complex area, and you have to be diligent and disciplined when watching the market and watching your investment daily. Okay, it's a lot of work, but because people know that people are lazy, they're not disciplined, they're not going to watch the market, they don't understand how the market works, and they definitely don't read. Okay, this is our new scheme. We can tell everybody invest in it and we go make billions of dollars, because these people just don't understand. And that's what happened. Okay, so you have to go and check and verify. And then, like I say, if you are one of those savvy investors, you know that regulation is expensive. Uncle Sam have to get there 40%, and that's 40% of your profit. And so, yes, I am going to go with an unregulated entity to invest in, because I'm going to make more money. I might lose everything, but if I may win. So it's the game of chance. So it just depends on what side of the fence you're on. Okay, so very good. Gwen, share with us, please.
Good afternoon, all. So the story that stood out for me was the story about the taxpayers having to pay an extra $31 million to complete the nationals, the baseball stadium that's in progress. A couple of points stood out for me. The fact that the project was being halted, or has halted for, I think, about maybe 4 or 5 years, if memory serves me correct. The fact that they, throughout the process of the project, the building of the project, vendors were not paid timely, and the project halt right before the last general election. The last administration, was on board that, they want to make this, a sports paradise. They want to explore, I guess, all avenues, or get heads in the beds when it comes to sports, because the arena is supposed to attract the MLB or the Major League Baseball people. They're supposed to be able to come here and use the facilities to train. But the fact that the facility lay dormant for such a long time, and that the cost of living and everything ran up during this period, and now that they're going to continue with it, and now that we have to take on the additional costs, for me, the additional cost for me, that was that stood out for me. Another story that caught my attention was a story about the school opening, the schools not being ready. For me, even though that happens every year, the fact that COVID was here, and that children were in school for almost 2 years, and now that they're back and nothing was prepared, like, that was eye-opening as well. For both stories, it showed how I guess we are reactive people. We're not really proactive. We don't do what is needed, I guess, to get things done, I guess, in time, in my opinion. So that they're the two stories that stood out for me this week.
Okay, great stories, Gwen. Let me just deal with education. We have a whole entire Ministry of Works. First of all, money should have been in the budget for the last 2 years for education as well as works. As you can see, with all the government buildings that are now being torn down, the government are not painted, or the elevator don't work, or dire conditions, and the people working until they have to go on strike. The post office that needed to just get knocked down to the ground. The government does not do a good job of maintaining these buildings. Okay, they build them and then they never look back. No maintenance, no paint, no whatever. But we have an entire Ministry of Work, so, and a staff. So it's mind-boggling for years. Like, what does the Ministry of Works do? What? Okay, and so Where's the budget for education? What happened during the last 2 years? Why? This has been a problem for many years, and now I think Brave Davis under the PLP was the Minister of Works. Why? You are now Prime Minister. Why? You know the insides and outs. Why isn't this on your agenda? And I guess there's so many other dire needs, but again, this is every Minister of Works should be held accountable, and every Minister of Education should be held accountable. Let's see if Hannah Martin will make a difference. And who Alfred says, I doubt it. You know, because to me, I mean, he is very good now, but really bring him back from to be the Minister of Work. So let's just see what's gonna happen. And then the stadium, my children is Greg. Oh Lord, what Greg last name is?
Burrows.
Burrows, yeah. So Greg is a gem. My children all went to Freedom Farm. He is excellent with what he did there. And he is really for the people. God bless his soul, right? However, it's been stagnant for 5 years because the PLP lost the government, and it was that project is his baby. And yes, he sees the wider picture because we have a lot of guys that have gone to the major leagues. And when they go, before they go, they always go to training into the Dominican Republic. And that brings a lot of revenue into the Dominican Republic. So what he is thinking is, hey, when these guys, and it's not only from the Bahamas, all around the world, their training camps are there. So he has the connects because we have sufficient players out there to encourage that you come train in the Bahamas. You know what I mean? So that's what he is trying to do there. However, because of the cost, the government did not support it. And again, politics caused it not to be finished. Another thing I want to say is, the Chinese came in, I don't know if we built that from the ground. The Chinese came in and they offered us a stadium for free. Oh, a gift to the Bahamas. We want to do something good to you. This wasn't the only gift. They gave us a couple gifts. But with that stadium, they came in and they built the structure for free. And then they told us that it was $50 million to outfit it. And one of the conditions is you had to let the Chinese men or, you know, come in and build it. And then you had to buy all the stuff from China. We say, oh yeah, fine, let the people come in. So a bunch of these Chinese men who are prisoners, because their prisons are full. And so what they do is in developing countries, they offer these gifts so these prisoners could do hard labor and while stay in prison, and they provide the share. So here it is, after they provided the share, they tell us it costs $50 million to outfit it. And we are Bahamians, we 10 times the size of Chinese. The little chairs, hard and small. What came with the $50 million, we could have gone to America, which was much closer, and gotten state-of-the-art stuff. But we had to go to China, of course, and spend this $50 million. So that's what they strategically do in many countries. And the F&M doesn't fall for the PLP, falls for it every single time. So I don't know. I cannot say if the Chinese did this statement, this stadium, but I'm not surprised at the $31 million because this just happened to us how much years ago that stadium being up? Yeah. So yeah, it's a strategy, nothing in life free. It costs us what the whole stadium would have cost to build. Okay, so very good. We must, keep abreast of what's going on in our country and read the details. Because again, who could pay this $31 million? Gwen, who could pay this? That's right.
Your children.
Oh, yeah. 10 generations could still be paid.
Yeah.
We ain't paid that 50 million yet. So yes.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. Stay abreast, and then this is why we need future leaders, and we need some of you who are educated, who know better, to go out there and do better. So hopefully, I'm hopeful. Vanika?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My newspaper article this week was about Sandals reopening after $55 million in renovation. They say that over this weekend, Sandals was supposed to expect an 85% occupancy. Friday, they would have had 137 rooms filled, and today they would have had an additional 150. I think this is good news for the Bahamas, because after letting all those persons off, 900 Bahamians were reemployed, or not reemployed, but newly employed. And that would greatly help our economy, as in with the employment rate. So I was happy to read that this week.
Yeah. Yes, that is good news, and happy that those people go get back to work, and hopefully after they catch themselves, they can pay some bills and not go take it to Miami, not go on cash and go line and send it out the country. That's the next steps, Renika, that we need to enforce. Try to keep some of the money in the country. Okay, now the government has done an excellent job in terms of taking it. So if you have a business license and you sell clothes, you don't pay the duty on the clothes. Whatever business license you have, you get a duty-free card to import that stuff, right? And so if the stuff is already imported, then you could spend locally. We don't need to go ourselves and then pay duty and bring us. It's the same price. And I've seen when with this shipping costs, you know, when I bring stuff through Go Postal, I might as well buy it right at home. Okay, so we need to, you know, update our refund policy and exchange policies and our customer service, and encourage persons to shop at home, and then we'll see the effect in the economy. So yeah, very good. Very good. Owen, you had your hand raised. You wanna say something?
Yes, I think this is not a it's a comment, and I would like clarification a little bit. It's related to, it's not an article, but it's related to compliance. Now, my understanding is that the definition of anti-money laundering in the simplest form is to take dirty money and turn it into clean money, right? That's a simple definition.
No. Money laundering is to take, anti means you preventing it. So
Okay.
that's money laundering, yeah.
Oh, money laundering, okay. Yeah, money laundering, take dirty money into clean money. Now, my clarification is that back in the day, right, there was something called bootlegging, which was illegal. My understanding is that the first premier of the Bahamas, Sir Roland Simonet, did money laundering. Did bootlegging, which at the time it was illegal. Today, it's illegal. The liquor industry is a legalized industry. Here it is now. That family has all these millions of dollars, and my understanding is that his wife even started Commonwealth Bank. Okay, if we know that he got a large portion of these shares from an entity that was illegal back then, we are supporting his assets today. Why are we doing that? Isn't that money laundering? I just need clarification.
But can I add to it? Because he went back far, because even with the numbers industry, numbers was just illegal the other day, but now it's legal.
I was just
Should we lock the bar?
He went far.
Exactly. I was gonna say that too.
Right. But Owen, good, because if you want to really know how these things are established and why we have all these issues, yeah, you need the history. And what we are finding out is history and her story, but nobody talks about her story yet. It's just history, right? And so the Bahamas is built on crime, okay? Bootlegging, pirating, what else was there? Drug trafficking in the 80s. Now it's probably arms, right? And then I guess gambling, the underworld of gambling somewhere in there. So bootlegging, pirating, the underworld of gambling, then the drug trade, and now is arms. Okay, and
human trafficking too.
And human trafficking, right? And so that's how our economy was established, by all illegal means, right? And so therefore we have to wash our history or learn. We have to learn lessons from the past, okay? And so just like being a prosecute Commonwealth Bank people, we are prosecuting Sabas and all the people that go in to jail for the little marijuana. Now we expunging their records, right? Because now it's legal. So At the time you committed the crime, it was not in law. And so therefore you are innocent. So that's just how it works, okay? And so this is why we have so many issues, because our forefathers, you know, we suffering from all the generational curses of our forefathers who this was the way of life and this was the only way because of slavery and from other means, okay? And so when you know better, you ought to do better, right? And so now around the world, compliance was born again because we were blacklisted, and it's only 21 years old. I just told somebody this. We still in the club partying, getting drunk and hanging from the chandelier. As we've come a long way, mind you, you know, from preteens to adulthood, right? And so now we are adults, but we still in party mode, still 21 years. And in the next 10 years, I see more progress. When we get 40, we know the rules, we could be enforcing them, everybody could be monitoring them, and we'll be fully matured. Okay, so it's a process, and that's how you have to look at it. But if you look back, a lot of people would be in jail. Okay, so you have to let the past be the past, but just know why the system is so flawed. And they normally say it's the lawmakers who should be in jail, because the lawmakers made the laws convenient for them. That's why, like, our rape laws, for rape you get 7 years, because primarily only men go to jail for rape. And so they gave the minimum amount of years that if they went to jail, what would happen? For a very long time, white collar crime wasn't, you know, some people went to jail for fraud, but on their 7 and 8 attempt. And so now we see politicians going to jail. And so what did we do? Create a white collar crime police station. We ain't putting them in Central with everybody else. So it's a little police station, not police station, but a little cell right on top of Bassel's mortician. So you create, you do one of these white collar crimes, you go in that little jail and don't get lost in Central whilst you away being charged. Okay, so it's the laws were made to accommodate the people who possibly, if this was ever me, just, you know, I can get the laws. And then because I write the law, like Wayne Monroe, Lucille, they will always been on a technicality. Okay. So yeah. Okay, good. Michelle.
Hey, Ms. Bullard, just do we have time to share one more thing?
Sure, go ahead.
Sure. Okay, so there was this little article in the Tribune on Wednesday about these two fellows who have been charged with fraud for trying to illegally cash checks at Royal Bank against Sun International. Sun is one of the oil companies. Anyways, I read this thing. Actually, I saw it on Eyewitness News on Tuesday, and then I saw it show up on the Tribune on Wednesday. And I remember I was thinking to myself, how can you let a guy walk into a bank with a $195,000 check and you guys honor the check and let him withdraw that money? Like, how does that even happen?
Well, I think one was a police officer or an immigration officer.
A defense force fellow.
Or defense force, okay, yeah. So first of all, people just simply do not pay attention to the news, okay, or social media. So first, 2 weeks ago, these guys went on social media with this money saying that we don't have feelings, we cash checks, and showing the money all over social media.
And I think that's how they caught them, not because of anything the bank did, but because they were boasting on social media.
Yes. But like you say, did they? I don't know if that was the money after or that was the money before. I'm not certain. But what I'm saying, whether it was post or pre, so many of their friends call their names and say, boy, you all wilding, you all doing this and whatever. So institutions, again, you should be getting a cause list. You should be getting a local list, or you should be reading the newspaper and seeing people who are charged before the courts. And then you put their names in your system, and then you say, oh, I need to watch this, or I need to file an STR, or what have you. And on I guess nobody's doing that balance and check. Just like we in the offshore world, we world check everybody. There are lists that comes out. There's Bahamas Court News that says these names. These people have bank accounts. Okay, so we are not properly tracking and monitoring and then following through. And then somebody should have realized, hey, where they get all this cash from? If this wasn't a drug deal, this had to come out one of our banks. Oh, this our customer. Oh, 195 withdrawn. We then most STRs are post. Okay, but like I say, because they boasted on social media, you know, their friends say, oh, we all get the money from. And it only had to take one person to say, let me borrow. And then they say, no, that's it. Tip off line. Okay, but yes, we have to monitor. The problem is we don't even know what our functions are and how they are to be carried out. Okay?
But can I say, for a transaction like that, if you walk into the bank and request $195,000, like that's an automatic UTR. Like I ready to call the police. Like what's happening? You know, like, you know, one in their red flag is correct. No one in their right mind in this day and time of walking with cash. Like,
right.
I don't want to walk with $100. Imagine 100 and some thousand. So right away, that's a red flag. Like something these dudes up to no good. Like, I need to alert somebody.
But
Exactly.
dig a bit
That was
deeper.
what I was thinking.
But that's
right?
that's a level of unawareness on the front line. And there are 3 lines of defense, right? The front line is supposed to be the first line of defense. Now, I don't know if he had on his defense force uniform and say there's a company account or something like that, but somebody wanted to walk around with that amount of cash. I'm not sure, Vanika, which bank gave the money, but we could perhaps Google it and find out. That's the level of unawareness.
It was a Sun Oil account, and it was an RBC branch. That was in the paper.
Okay, so an RBC branch let them walk out with that cash. And now at Lyford Key branch, that's, you know, you do have some wealth management customers that do want cash like that, but we do check that, you know, we carry out due diligence and we send proper approval for those amounts, you know, that would raise an eyebrow.
Well, they did say he had other forged documents saying that he apparently represented the company or something, but I mean, how does a bank, you don't have $100,000, $200,000 cash laying around in a bank, do you? Like, to give them cash?
Of course.
Well, I've never had 100,000, let alone 2, so I would never know.
Yeah. See, we poor Michelle, we being in those leagues. Like when people say billion, we say, oh, I'm not realized that's 5 weeks worth of money. Yeah, we have to, you know, up our.
I know, I got to change my thinking. I got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good. Mikhail and Nicole, you want to add something, Mikhail?
Yes, just really good afternoon, everybody. Just really quickly, as I think that we also need to wonder what is going on in the businesses themselves, because this is maybe not for 195,000, but something like this. This is not uncommon, because I think at RBC, again, a few years back, there was an issue with I believe some BPL or government checks that had the same storyline. And again, technically those checks or those items, they pass the bank's protocol. That they have the right signatories. Most of the times, those tellers or whoever the representative is, they will take the appropriate ideas. So there is no need to really follow up. Again, 195 is really high, but if the same thing could happen with like a $20,000 check, and again, if you're going to a branch that is known for like high business turnover, there wouldn't be a reason to call BPL or call Sun Oil. So I would just really like to wonder what is going on at those companies such that they don't secure their checks or their stamps that is allowing those items to get out, because those typically are not forged. They're just in the wrong hands. And then, like you say, you don't find out until after the fact.
Right. Yeah, and like I say, like Miguel said, some of those transactions are, you know, within the company's profile, but in the end, you are required to know your customer, you know, and the companies perhaps need some awareness training as well. But again, we reactive. So I'm sure Sun Oil is having somebody train their staff and looking at their accounts department and doing some revisions. Yeah, Nicole?
So I wanted to, I have an inquiry pretty much based on the same story. And I guess I want to know, and it's probably piggybacking off of what was just said in regards to pretty much what's happening in these companies. So in a situation like this, okay, so the proper investigations are done. We find that, okay, the scam or the whole scheme was definitely the guys by themselves. The teller that assisted them, you know, really had nothing to do with it in terms of it being an inside job. I guess she did her appropriate level of due diligence for what she feels her hierarchy calls for. But do our regulatory boards at any point hold the companies then, I guess, do they get penalized in any way though for circumstances like this actually taking place? Or is it just a slap on the wrist? Or is it just one of those things where the company internally then, you know, I guess kind of gets their employees together and say, okay, within ourselves, we need to beef it up. But does our regulatory board step in at any point and say to the company on a whole, just as a company under the industry, okay, this would happen because this happened in your establishment? Does that ever happen?
No, I mean, what happened is they look at the number of incidences that you have had, right? And definitely they're gonna do a check and balance. Do you have sufficient knowledge or sufficient education and sufficient experience within that department that is continuously infiltrated? You're gonna be infiltrated. The scammers and hackers are smarter than us, okay? We go to work and overwhelmed and underpaid. They sit in the room all day and they read and they ask questions and they learn the industry and then they infiltrate. Our job is to be able to explain what the policy says, prove that we were not negligent. Our policy states this. It was approved by our board and it was approved by central bank. There's no gaps in the policy. There are no flaws. However, we were still infiltrated. And so, Nicole, if you were the teller and you could come explain to me what policy you follow and explain to me why you cash this check and what controls are in place, then you fine. However, we in this I don't know syndrome, and I don't know, and I don't even know where to find information, or I definitely, what policy? I don't know what policy we follow. So then that's what they say in the code. You cooperated with these people. You did not protect the financial services industry, and so you go into jail. Okay. So once we can explain ourselves, and we do have policy in place that don't have gaps, then you okay. If you could explain yourself, but the policy have a gap, they can say, Nicole, where did you advise senior management that this policy needed to be updated? And you say, we had several occasions, but I don't make those decisions. So then now we can find the company. Okay. Or it may be something new. You may have good policies, good procedures, but there's a new trend and a new strategy they're using. So now you need to do an update. A lot of times, companies have sound policy, but they ain't updated since 2000. So this is why they were, so sometimes you have to make some changes. Okay, so it's all about explaining yourself, and then you have to, okay, if you can't explain yourself, you go to jail.
Okay, understood.
Yeah. Andre, Lisa?
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to make a comment. I'm baffled as to how those guys were able to walk out of the bank after cashing that check, because I used to work in banking, and a teller only can approve something over, I guess, over $5,000, and then it goes on to the supervisor, and she has a limit, and then it goes on to the bank manager after a certain limit. So I don't understand that.
Yeah, so all of them signed again. Sun Oil. You know what oil means? Big money.
Yeah. Oil is money, but
yeah.
at the same time,
so
someone was supposed to contact Sun Oil.
Not if it's, first of all, we are not checking profiles. That's the first thing. Okay, what was the purpose of this account? Why did this account open? Is this within the threshold? Yeah. Okay, then we approve it. Does the signatures match? That's all we looking for. Andre, Lisa, and Miss Bullet is signed. The signatures match, okay, yeah, the check good. Okay, like I say, some branches, we used to open an account with Royal Bank Trust, my, was $250,000. My limit, I was unlimited. And so once those signatures, back in my day, once those signatures match, we didn't look for profile. This risk-based approach just came into place in 2018, right? So prior to when I was approving stuff unlimited, and we had the people when we didn't want to be, those people who just happy they could sign, oh, I'm the manager. They don't even look at it. They say, Bullet, how your day was? What you do on the weekend? They sign in $4 million. They didn't look at it once. Bullet, this is who it's supposed to go to, right? Yeah, okay. That's how it worked. And that's still the attitude of some of the professionals. You know who you could go to. Don't take it to Miss Bullet because she could turn it upside down. I don't have time for that. I need this quick, the line out the door. Don't let them come on a government payday. Jesus, you could rip that CM branch off 100 times on a government payday because they mad, they ain't had no lunch hour. The line been out the door the whole day. And so we hungry, nobody go and pick up our bambusha. Hurry up, serve these customers. Let's close this bank. Don't let them come at 3:59. Secure, why you let them in the branch? Come, hurry up, get these people, the manager sign. Hurry up, get these people out here so we can go home. It's Friday. We just get paid.
You have a point.
That's the truth. People know, they pay attention. I used to have a neighbor who say, Miss Bullet, I come into the bank today for some tea. I say, for some tea? He said, yeah. I say, let me, before I get to know you and know you as my neighbor, yeah, I used to dress up and go to the bank for tea and say, let me go in and antagonize those ladies. And whilst they're antagonizing, they sitting down there, they watching, they looking at the system. They know, they know the system. So stop going to work bothered and overworking, underpaid, and be alert and aware. Or even, like I say, most STRs are posts, follow through. Oh Lord, I don't cash that check. I want my name attached to that. I just say no. Failing to disclose. That's what happens. You're dealing with human beings. Okay? Very, very, very good discussion. Very good discussion. Okay, very good awareness. So be alert and be aware. Right in the end, most of we don't read as remedial as that sound. That's the biggest problem. We don't read. And when we read, we don't comprehend. And we definitely don't apply. Because this thing never happened to us. We just wait till it happens, and some people go to jail, and some people lose their job, and then be on it. Hopefully. That's how it works. Okay, good, very good, guys. Very good. I'm very pleased. I learning a lot. You are keeping Miss Bullet awake. So good job, good job. Okay. Okay, good. So who read now? We in our third week. We have one more week for the chapter, and then we have review. Who? I know you all read chapter 3 and 4. Tell me. Let Miss Bullet mouth rest. Tell me what you all know about chapter 3. Anybody? Not chapter 3. Listen, you all didn't even correcting me. You all sleep or you all awake? Hello. Let me call some names. Let me look on this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Owen, you there?
5 and 6 now, eh?
Okay, right. See, I give you all the wrong information and you all didn't even know. 5 and 6. Owen, what you read? Tell me what you read in chapter 5.
To be honest, I read it, but what happened is I was reading the 4th chapter full one time, so trying to digest all. I was little
and then I had you up with Stafford Son saying,
right.
I understand. Okay, all right. Who else? Who I make Miss Bullet proud? Who? Nobody? Okay.
So I
tried.
started. Go ahead.
So I read some of chapter 5 relative to the risk-based approach.
Mm-hmm.
So this chapter was a little bit interesting to me because I used to be an auditor at Deloitte. So I'm very familiar with pretty much going into the companies and having this risk-based approach mindset. So a lot of the information in the chapter was information that was very familiar, but for the gist of it, the chapter was pretty much talking about companies and the different types of risk, the different levels of risk. One of the big things in the company is the inherent risk, which is pretty much risk that is associated naturally with the company based on its industries that it operates in. So risk that really just, I guess, pretty much what we were talking about with the bank is a good example. The fact that it's going to happen regardless. We have to figure out the ways to implement proper controls, that type of stuff, to ensure that we can either mitigate it, maybe not completely, but as much as we possibly can. So the inherent risk, they come in regardless what we do. We just have to kind of keep abreast and try to keep one step ahead of those situations. Some of the other stuff that it talks about was pretty much just different ways that you can assess the risks, different ways that you can dissect the companies, determine the controls. Eventually later down, it went into the roles of persons that would be, I guess, like third parties, the auditors, the internal auditors, the compliance persons, their roles in helping to assist in mitigating the risk. But pretty much the risk assessment begins from the smallest person in the company is what I got from it. Everybody has a role to play because there are risks in every areas of the company. Some risk, I think, especially in the Bahamas, we may sweep under the rug, whether it's from familiarity or just, like you said, overworked and underpaid. So we just don't really care that particular day. But the reality is there's risk areas everywhere. And pretty much we all have a job to play as a person in that establishment to keep our eyes open. That's the gist of what I got from chapter 5.
Yes, very, very good. Miss Bullet Proud, Miss Bullet Proud. Very good, Nicole. Okay, and so you said something, mitigate it as much as possible. Correct. You cannot eliminate it. Always remember that. And so we have some people that take this to heart. They have heart attacks over trying to follow policy and procedure. You must, exercise good judgment and you put controls in place that will mitigate. You will never eliminate. So don't beat yourself up over if your company is infiltrated. Just ensure that you learn from it and see if there are any gaps and then fix them. We have companies like Apple, and as you get into ICA, we read more about, the Apple iPhone, where they would have implemented, they would have identified some key risks. They had problems, they were sued, everything, and they just made no changes because their brand is so strong, nobody enforced it. And then they have a lot of workers in China, and China has had child labor problems for ages, and so it's just overlooked. So you want to ensure that you fix, and big companies look for countries that have relaxed laws or have systemic problems because they want to get away with it. And their bottom line is most important, so they don't act ethically. So you want to ensure that you are aware of all these things, okay? So for Owen, the little history on this risk-based approach is that, it used to be a rules-based approach where, it was a tick the box type of situation. Do you do this? Yes or no? Do we do that? Yes or no? And remember, when we talked about the international standards, there's a Wolfsburg questionnaire. And Wolfsburg is a group of the 8 largest correspondent banks around the world. And they have a questionnaire that they send out if you want to offer correspondent banking services where you send wires. And when we moved, their rules-based approach to their questionnaire used to be 28 questions. Now with a risk-based approach, it's 200. So it just shows you the work and the changes that comes along with this rules-based versus risk-based to ensure that you encapsulate all the information that is required. Okay, so back to the FATF 40 recommendations. Remember, the Bahamas, we were deficient in 22 of the 40, but I think somebody said last week that they were proud to say that we are largely compliant in 30 and just, I think, partially compliant in 10. So that means that we put these recommendations into our laws and we are trying to enforce them. So recommendation 1, very first one we were deficient in. It just says countries must assess their risks and then they must put controls in place, okay? So update your risk assessment. So risk assessment is at 3 levels. Well, at 2 levels. No, 3A. So at the country level, at the industry level, and then at the organization level. So the country then has to assess its risk, right? And based on the risk of the country, then they must put controls in place. So before we go on, let me just give you a visual because this could get confusing. So you say, Ms. Pullett, what you talking about? Just what Will is talking about, okay? So we have 2 international organizations that assess risk, that determine what a country's risk rating is. Okay, it's the Basel Index, and then there's Transparency International. Okay, and so the Basel Index, they say each country must assess their risk. Okay, so back in 2014, the Bahamas assessed their risk, right? And so back in 2014, 2015, 2016, we put out a risk assessment. So of course we know how deficient that is, right? Because in 2015 was when the gaming center was regularized. So of course, only limited information in there about gaming. And then just recently in 2019, it's when the Compliance Commission started to regularize law firms, accounting firms, and real estate. So definitely we only mention them. You know, we don't have a big assessment on them. And so the financial services sector, again, Insurance Commission, Central Bank, Securities Commission. Come on, y'all have Miss Bullet, the Compliance Commission. What's the last one? The Gaming Board. Okay, those 5 regulators in the Bahamas would have to go out to their industry, get information, and then determine what the risk is for their industry, bring it all together, and then make a country risk rating. And then we'll send that on to the Basel Committee to decide how our country is risk rated. Okay, and when we get to chapter 6, we will learn that, of course, no country wants to be risk rated as high risk. You're risk rated as high risk, many countries don't do business with you. You are subjected to enhanced due diligence. You are supposed to be audited each year. So every country fights to ensure that they are not high risk, right? And how does the Basel Committee determine if a country is high, medium, or low? They look at the quality of the money laundering, terrorist financing framework. They look at the bribery and corruption. They look at financial transparency and standards. They look at public transparency and accountability. And of course, you know, our laws just were updated in 2018 to incorporate all these 40 recommendations. So you heard every time the Prime Minister spoke, we want to be accountable and transparent. Did he really do it? Not exactly, but he said it. So that was the first step, right? And they look at legal and political risk. All around the Caribbean, presidents have been impeached. They have been removed. Governors of the central bank in Brazil, they are civil law, so you're guilty until proven innocent. And so that means if we say you thief, you go into jail and you prove you're innocent. So the governor of central bankers has gone to jail. Account officers in Brazil have gone to jail. Presidents have been impeached out of Brazil. Okay, so luckily, we are innocent until proven guilty, and so you could go get bail after they lock you up, and they stop parading us across the TV. So we have that benefit. Okay, so all of this is global money laundering risk, and this is the Basel Committee website, and we just want to look, see how we are rated. You see Haiti, right? 8.4 now. So this is the legend right here. So this map would make no sense if we don't know the legend. So anything green is low, yellow is medium, and orange is high risk. So if Haiti right there, we know nobody doing business with Haiti, right? We see right there Cuba, okay? Cuba is a sanctioned country, but they still are medium risk. So that means they do have some framework in place. And we can't look at what the US says. We know there's a big bad US and most countries listen to them. However, not only the US makes this decision. So because of the, Cuba gets a lot of aid from Russia and from different parts of Europe. And so they chimed in to say, no, just because you have the US has Cuba sanction, that means, that's correct. Okay. Somebody said something, 2 institutes for assessing risk is base index, and what is the other one? Transparency International. So Basel Index and then Transparency International. Yes, very good. Okay, and so let's look for where the Bahamas is. Oh, there we is. There we are. Yeah. So 6.46. Where we is. What y'all have to say? Somebody talk to me. Where we is. Borderline.
Yellow, so medium, orange, yellowish.
Yeah.
We high risk bank.
Be borderline, like 1 point.
Just getting out of it, but we can easily slip back into it.
Right. So, and remember now, the last time we did this full risk assessment was in 2015-16. And so this rating from 2014, and because the 2015-16 risk rating was severely deficient. A lot of the sectors weren't regulated and they didn't give any information. And now, just in 2018, we're on enforcement. And so these, they created a body and said that, everybody's regulated now, and yet we're just waiting on the industry to respond. And so the central bank ran out to all the banks, sent this survey with 200 questions that we had to answer based on risk. The Securities Commission went out to all the securities broker firms and they had to do the same thing. And so I work at an institution where I was duly regulated by the central bank and Securities Commission. So I had 400 questions to answer. And it was some were the same, but most were different because one was based on the securities industry, one was based on the banking industry, okay? So if you're duly regulated, both regulators require different things, okay? So once all the banks send everything in the central bank and all the broker firms, all the real estate accountants and lawyers send it in the Compliance Commission, then they do an analysis. 60% said A, 70% said B, whatever, and then that's how they formulate the country's risk assessment. So of course, that's a horrendous long process, right? And God help whoever has to do that, but that's where we're at. So they did an update and said where we are at, and they said the risk assessment would be completed by March 2021. And I saw nothing in the news, nothing came out. I imagine they would have sent it on to if they did meet that deadline, they would have sent it on to the international regulators, the Basel Committee, to decide, is the country still at 6.46 medium risk, or are we now high risk? Of course, being high risk would affect our economy greatly. Let me just tell you the net effect. I worked at an institution that paid Switzerland $100,000 for their trading desk, just the platform. And so we, of course, before the pandemic, we were trying to cut costs indefinitely. During the pandemic, it's like, we have to cut every cost possible. So the traders sit in Bahamas. So why are we paying for the platform, Switzerland, $100,000? And so we came up with this idea that we would bring our trading desks locally. We just need a US bank account and a European bank account. And so we went on a journey to New York to speak with like the major banks like Morgan Stanley and Chase and what have you. And so we went to Morgan Stanley, and Morgan Stanley, they entertained us for a while, and then they came back and said, "You're not approved to open this account." And we said, "Why?" We met all your requirements or what have you. And they said, "Because we don't do business with high risk jurisdiction." So immediately I said, we're not high risk, we're medium high. And where did you get that? They said, "But Bahamas is perceived as high risk." I said, "Based on what?" They said, "Based on this rating that you're showing me is from 2014. So what could I say? That was the net effect, right? Of the little man trying to save $100,000 because the country was perceived, and I wasn't able. They say we'll accept a rating from 2018 or 2017, but this is 2020. We're not going to accept a rating from 2014. So we were not able to open that account, and hence our trading desk today is still In Switzerland, we are still paying $100,000 in fees. Okay, so that's what could possibly happen. So of course, the governor has been trying to do all he can do to ensure that this rating does not go up the high. Go ahead, Tennille.
Good morning once again, Ms. Bullard and student and fellow students. My question is, this is the Basel assessment, right? And then I know that the factor, that's the best way, FATF, and the Caribbean version of the Financial Action Task Force also do an assessment. So if the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force did an assessment on our country and said that we have met the requirements to come off that the delisting for the European Commission, then why isn't that requisite to show that we are making moves in the right direction, even though the Basel would still show that we are not, or because of this?
Yeah, this is why the quality is only one part of it, right? So Part F gives its input. That's only one aspect. There are 5 other. In fact, there are 14 categories. Let me look for methodology. Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
And that's an important word that I want persons to understand, because a lot of times we have stuff in place and we don't understand how it works. So methodology is important. Let me see. My favorite word. Please write this word down. Okay, so what is methodology, right? Of course, no country wants to be high risk. And so everybody's gonna fight. No, my country is not high risk. And so they tell you what would cause you to be high risk. Shortfalls in your framework, corruption and bribery, poor financial transparency standards, poor public transparency and accountability, and weak political rights. So they tell you, and so countries go and ensure that they are not high risk. And so these are the categories that this is the methodology on how they measure you. Because like I said, each country is going to fight. So the quality of your AML CFT framework is 65%. That FATF mutual evaluation report is only 35%. We were deficient in 22. We are now compliant in 30. We are largely compliant in the last 10. The Tax Justice Network Financial Secrecy Index, right? We updated all our tax laws. 1 or 2 of them were updated incorrectly. I don't know if it was a staggered approach, but we have it up. We have it fixed now. Bribery and corruption. First time ever, we had politicians being brought before the court. Very good. No, you mean every politician in the last, from 1973, 40 something years, they were honest and upright and they weren't corrupt like everybody else in the rest of the world. So that didn't look good that we only had law-abiding politicians. And now these politicians winning on a technicality and suing the government for costing the government pay it. No, that don't look good. And then our bribery risk matrix, that's a percentage out there as well. So that's only 10%, but Transparency International also gives a corruption perception index. And just like most companies say that we don't do business with high-risk countries, one day, I worked in offshore for the bulk of my career. And we paid salaries for a company out of Russia. There was a company in Madagascar that owned an island in Nassau where we paid, we did all their operational costs for the island. And I think Lebanon, right? And so when all the laws updated in 2018, it was not only the Bahamas, frameworks around the world were deficient. Like Switzerland was deficient in 20 something as well, and so was Brazil, all over the world. It's 195 countries that are included, I think. It's 205, but only 195 are included. And so everybody, was updating their regulation, trying to ensure that they have a good outcome or risk rating. So the corruption perception index came into play. And I sent salaries for this place in Russia last week. Every week I used to approve their salaries. This week, our correspondent bank said we no longer do business with companies that have a corruption perception index that's less than 30. So that was Lebanon, that was Russia, that was Madagascar. So I said, how do we tell our clients that we can't pay their salaries? They went to work. We had no advance warning. They said the laws changed in 2018. This was in 2019. We just implementing them now. I said, but I need to at least put these salaries through. And then next week I could tell them they can't do it anymore. And they said no. So we had to find a way to pay those salaries. So the CPI index, sorry, somebody said something? Okay, so the CPI index is an index that is under Transparency International as well. It runs from 100 to 45. Any country that has a CPI index less than 45 is considered high risk. But you would find that a lot of countries don't do business with countries less than 30. Okay, and that's the Lebanon, that's the Venezuela, Madagascar, and all those places. Okay, so one week I got to pay school fees. The next week, it was being enforced. I couldn't pay the salaries. And so, of course, we lost that business because why I need to have an account open in the Bahamas and you can't do business with us anymore. I used to pay an insurance for a customer that had a house in Spanish Wells and Eleuthera in the Bahamas. But he was from Lebanon. And when those bombings happened in Lebanon, the Lebanese prime minister spoke out against Netanyahu, who's the Israeli prime minister, and he accused him of terrorism. He didn't know what happened. He didn't know that they had confiscated a ship years ago. The ship stood there with some gas and that gas exploded. But because he spoke out against Israel, Netanyahu and Donald Trump, who was president at the time, are best buds. So, you know, if the US put a sanction against you, everything stops in the country. And so immediately, Trump put out some sanctions and you weren't able to do business with Lebanon. So here it is. I want to pay for my house insurance in Spanish Wells, Bahamas. But because my address is a Lebanese address, it's blocked. So his entire account was blocked. He couldn't do nothing. Everywhere he went, he couldn't get money. And so it was crazy. So he had to try and change his address. But if you, at that point, you didn't have telephone service or cable service or anything in your name, it was difficult to do that. And that had nothing to do with honest, abiding, law-abiding citizen. It's the country risk. Okay, so you should be aware of our country's CPI index as well. Okay, and back to methodology. There are 1, 2, 3, and this was a question. No, this, or when you get to intermediate, you'll go delve deeper and have a question on this. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 domains, okay? And this is how they decide if your country is high, medium, or low, okay? Methodology. With your customer risk rating, there's a methodology. Nobody understands how it works. Where do you get your information from? Nobody's updating it. Okay, so just so you would understand. It says overall risk management is being able to identify and assess which risks are inherent to the institution. So the word is the probability that this will happen, and what controls we can put in place to ensure that it doesn't. Okay, risk is only as a risk assessment is only as good as the day is done. Because today I always say, Ms. Bullitt, is the teaching compliance and anti-money laundering. However, a pandemic come and I need to feed my children, and so therefore I compromise myself. This site, go to the site, you'll have to go and do more research. See, domain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Domain 5 is the political and legal. Domain 4 is public transparency and accountability, but again, only 5%. Domain 3, financial transparency and standards, corruption and bribery. Yeah, y'all gotta do research and go look these things up and ensure that you understand all of it. This again, remember, it's only an overview.
So, Ms.
Okay?
Bullock,
Yes, go ahead.
so would this still mean that we're basically, according to the Basel list, like in high risk? So why are we taking it for so much of a win that I guess we're 38 out of 40 for the FTA under now following those regulations? We're just seeing it as a win because that means it released some of the pressure, like we could invest abroad more calmly and things like that.
No, I mean, remember now, we have to do a staggered approach. Putting these laws in place is expensive. This wipes out, okay, so we were a tax jurisdiction for many years. Now we say, no matter where you have your money, even in the Bahamas, we will prosecute you. And so everybody only had their money here to pay taxes, take their money back home. That wipe out the system. Banking used to be 20% of GDP. We lost 17% with the closures and the outsourcing and all of the people that just repatriated and went back home with all these laws. They're expensive. So we don't want to be high risk. And so the governor has put in place, you would see that Scotiabank tells you right off the bat, we don't want to do business with money services businesses because they are high risk, and overall Scotiabank will be high risk if they open up a bunch of accounts for Omni and the number houses and cash and go. We just ain't gonna do business with them. Okay, so there's a sector in the Bahamas. Does the Bahamas say, no, we ain't got these businesses? Fidelity broke ties with Western Union for the same thing. So the governor said, listen, I don't want the fact that we're so cash intensive that we're going to be seen as high risk. So let me work on controlling the cash intensivity. And so he created the digital currency. It's not cryptocurrency, it's a digital currency. It's the sand dollar. Does any of us know about the sand dollar? No, because we don't read it. And if our companies don't implement it and force it down our throats, then we don't even know about it. Okay, but overall, the less cash intensive we are, this will help with our overall country risk rating. Okay, so created the sand dollar, and then he put a moratorium on the number of cash and goes and the number of licenses that will be issued to money services businesses. Okay, he also on the security side decreased the leverage. So I think leverage is the amount of money you can buy or borrow against. So if you have 200,000 on an account, you can borrow up to 100 or 200%. So I think our leverage used to be one of the highest in the Caribbean, and so that attracted a lot of broker dealers to come here and open up accounts. And then that attracted a lot of customers. They say, okay, in Switzerland, if I invest, the leverage is only 100%. If I invest in the Bahamas, the leverage, I could go up to 200% of borrowing power to invest. Again, a high leverage makes you high risk. And so he decreased the leverage, but it's still competitive. People will still want to come to the Bahamas and invest from the Bahamas because our leverage is still higher than those jurisdictions. So there are various initiatives that he has put in place to ensure that we're not overall high risk. Okay, Owen, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I want to say 6.4% is still 6.5, so we still high risk. I mean, is that
no, I don't know. Let me see. No, you 7 still in the yellow, you know. Look at the legend. I think, let's see. We could be medium high. They call that medium high when we don't put up there. Thank you. Now you can go up to 8. It look like 8. When you get to 8%, you're high. And you see? So we still get some to play with.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's look over here. Who this is? or the Congo, 8.35, yeah. It looked like up to 8, yeah. But we don't even want to go to 7. We got to decrease. Okay, that means it will be cheaper to do business with us, less interest rates, less fees and services, and then, you know, with the, Moody and it is Standard and Poor's, they on our the minutes up our point, they ready to give us junk status, and you know, so we got to be careful.
So do they evaluate the US?
All countries.
What's the US rating?
Oh, and homework again. What you mean? You mean this United States of America? 4.6. You mean this rating, or you mean Standard and Poor's rating?
No, this rating. This
See
rating.
it there, 4.6. Of course, the most powerful economy in the world wouldn't be, and that's just it. When you have influence, all of us are equal, but some of us are more equal than others. And when we talk about taxes, we'll go into that. If Ms. Bullitt start on that, that's a whole nother story.
Ms. Bullitt, because
Yes.
central bank decided to bring the sand dollar, is that the reason why? Because a lot of people come to the bank recently and they ask us if we deal with Bitcoin. And we're just like, we don't know, because central bank, since they brought in their sand dollars, like we don't deal with PayPal or anything now. They don't allow it to come through the banks anymore. Well, it used to come to CIBC, but it's like they just fully stopped it. Well, like 3 weeks ago.
Right, and so you need to read, the sand dollar is a digital currency for the Bahamas, okay? And so those cryptocurrencies, cryptocurrency is different. There's digital assets, there are like 3 or 4 categories, and I think I would have asked you to follow the FinTech Hub at the Securities Commission, because that's the new thing, and you have to be abreast and what's going on. That's if you want to be in the know. You know, there's a lot of publications, there's a lot of information out there on crowdfunding and the various assets and what category they fall under. So follow it so you would know, especially if your bank deals with it. Okay? Loads of information. And again, the expectation is not that you retain all of this in your head. Like I tell you, Ms. Bullitt still has to go and do a lot of research, but you must be information seeking, and you must know where would I find this out? At the Securities Commission, FinTech. Right? Because half of your research will be way of trying to find out where you get this information from. Okay? Okay, so risk-based approach. Recommendation 1. Countries must assess their risks, put controls in place to mitigate the risk. Only as good as today is done, but again, if you're high, it's you assess it or review it each year. If you're medium, it's every 2 years, and if you're low risk, every 3 years. Of course, so everybody wants to be low risk, but they do high risk things, but they want to be low risk. Okay, so the risk framework is threefold: is the risk appetite, it's the risk assessment, and then it's the risk rating. Okay, and like I said, the risk assessment is done at the country level, and then at the organization level. I feel like I missed something just now. It'll come back to me. This is confused me even. Okay, but we still on the same page. You're following me, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so risk-based approach is described as risk identification and assessment, risk management and mitigation, documentation of risk assessments. Okay, and in 2019, the central bank and the various regulators came out and they enforced the law, and they said institutions must complete their risk assessment by June of 2019, June 22nd, I think it was, on the AML risk assessment had to be submitted. And then the enterprise-wide risk assessment had to be submitted to your regulator in October of 2019, and many organizations have not even submitted. I mean, they did not meet that deadline, and they got a lot of the credit unions who were just getting the MLROs on streams. The compliance commission, along with the real estate and the law firms and account firms who were just being regulated, did not meet their deadlines, but fines were imposed because, like I said, we were being internationally watched. The FATF was threatening to come in and check to make sure it was done. So, and if it was not done, that fines were administered. And like I said, the people at the credit union was just trying to update their AML framework and look for a compliance officer to be able to do this work. And a lot of them, they say, who been here the longest? You've been here for 25 years? Thomas, you who's compliance? Yeah, but I don't know nothing but compliance. Go down to Miss Bullet class and they an intro and they have to do a risk assessment. So one or two persons, they even got let go after 25 years because they did not know what to do, but they were forced into these positions and they were not trained. And then these deadlines were stringent because, like I said in the past, we used to hear from the regulator once every 6 years when they come and do a inspection. Now they have an analytics department. They are your friends. They call you every week. They are enforcing. Okay, so gone are the days when you think, I gotta do this because they ain't come back for 6 years. No, they coming. They there. And even though they are on a learning curve because they enforced in 2019 that it had to be done, but they haven't given the industry any feedback yet. They haven't gone back and said if it's correct or not. So, they still training, and looking at trends and trying to keep up to date and put a sound framework in place. But internationally watched, they are not giving any breaks. And so the administrative policies and imposing fines and everything have been updated as well. Okay, and so it says the benefit of a risk-based approach is being able to distinguish between the clients and the risks they pose to the business. Senior management can apply its own approach to procedures, systems, and controls. It's a cost-effective system. It helps alleviate fines. Concentration is focused on the greatest risk. With senior management, that was a big problem too in 2009 because everybody said, oh, there's a risk problem or compliance problem. In my institution, there was no even risk department in 2009. So of course, all this fell on the compliance department, right? And so, yeah, I see a question, Owen. What are the main compliance reports that need to be generated? When you say reports, of course, compliance would ensure that policies and procedures are in place. Each month, there's some management information that needs to be received. How many accounts are dormant, how many accounts open, how many accounts closed, and that type of information would be tracked just to make sure that we are meeting targets and goals and we are remaining compliant. I hope that answers your question. Yeah, so senior management felt like this was compliance problem or risk problem, and the absence of a risk department, of course, this fell on compliance. Was it truly our jobs? No, because we are supposed to be independent of the business. We should not be involved in any operations. And writing a risk assessment is operational, right? And so going out to the HR and saying, please document the risks in your department, they say, you have to tell us what the risks are. Going out to credit, going out to finance. I said, truly, you'll expect the compliance officer to know the insides and outs there. I said, then you all are not the expert. I am, if I got to tell you what the risks are. So, we had to put it in their job descriptions. When we hired new executive, we had to make them sign off that they understand risks, to the credit department, if you could be the credit manager, and so on and so forth. So it was a horrendous process because it's enterprise-wide assessment cannot be done by just the compliance department. Compliance had its own assessment to do, and then you combine that and you submit that to the regulator. So that was a process that we went through. Luckily, we got through it. Okay, and so then the book goes on to talk about there are other risks, criminal risks, reputational risks, credit risks, concentration risks, and what have you. And let me just give you an example of concentration risk. We did a lot of work for perhaps it was the state bank, I'm not certain, out of Antigua and Barbuda. And they had the majority of their money with us. And so they were assessed by their regulators. And the regulator says, basically, you have all your money in one bank in the Bahamas. And if that one bank in the Bahamas fails, then you fail. And that bank was not stable. And so they said, you have all your eggs in one basket, separate that money. Send some of that money to another bank in the Bahamas or into another country. But you can't have all your eggs, it's too concentrated. And then reputational risk. Of course, I was at Royal Bank of Canada when we closed out the trust department, very profitable, making loads of money. However, we was being sued by the French government. We were accused of tax evasion, collaborating with the customer to tax evade. And then, you know, a trust is a legal entity. And so what you do with a trust account is you pass on the ownership to the trust. And so the trust could belong to Owen, but Owen will delegate all his authorities and everything to the Royal Bank of Canada. And then we just get a letter of wishes from Owen would say, I wish you do this and I wish you do that. And so the customer said, I wish you open up a storage facility in which I can store my artwork. And we did that. And so the storage facility was not in Owen's name, it's in Royal Bank of Canada's name. And so, yeah, stolen art was in there. We got sued. And now this was only one customer. Mind you, was our very big customer. However, Royal Bank has 5 entities within the Bahamas, which is where all have I worked? Finco, Royal Bank Head Office, Capital Markets, Dominion Securities, Trust, and it used to be private banking. So I would have worked in all 5 entities of the Royal Bank. And yeah, the reputational risk would have been too severe. And so even though we were profitable during the court case, especially since the laws had, but this was 260, and so just before the laws had changed, but we know the laws were in the working. And so to avoid Royal Bank Commercial and Capital Markets and Dominion Securities reputational risk, we just closed out because we were in the news every day. We were in the French news, it was crazy. And so we closed down, 33 persons went home. Okay, that's how severe reputational risk could be. Of course, Royal Bank has a very strong brand, but they thought it best until this court case is still going on. We have so far been acquitted on the tax evasion charges, but in terms of this very high end paintings and stuff like that, and millions of dollars involved. Yeah, that case is still going on. But that just shows you the risk involved when, of course, no Bahamian at that time was well versed in art and, you know, what would have been stolen across the world and what have you. Mind you, they did give us these very large binders with copies of the art and labels and everything, and we exchanged and sent payments and bought new art and sold new art. But did we ever look through those 800-page binders? Not until the court case came up. Did we understand which was stolen from what was not stolen? Did we look at the stolen art list? No, we never did. And so here it is. It looks like we colluded with that customer in order to store the stolen art in the storage facility. Okay? So that's risk. Any questions?
Hi, Ms. Pillard, I have a question, please.
Go ahead.
So with that story that you just told us, I know you closed out and you said that was more risk. So is it incumbent on the company, like if they have a trust for a client, to know, I guess, everything about that client and everything and the source of everything that they're holding, not just the cash assets, but everything?
Yes, and again, this was like 216 before the laws changed. We are now going into chapter 6, which talks about statutory requirements, which means this is required by law. And you are required to know your customer. That's a law.
So like in that example where you said it would be very difficult for you all to know that those paintings were stolen. If you
No,
take
no,
on
no,
a
it wouldn't
trust,
have been, we were just not knowledgeable. Like art isn't a big thing in the Bahamas.
Right.
And if you grew up in London or in Paris or whatever, you would know more about it. But I'm just saying, we were not knowledgeable. And this is a good case of when you get a position, you gotta go and find out about it. If you get a position and it requires you to go speak Spanish, you better go speak Spanish or you would forget about that position. You know, and that's where we are at, because people, like I said, they prey on our ignorance. If you are, and this account was so big that it had 2 trust officers assigned to it, okay? And this was the only account that they had. This is how active they were. So if we knew then what we knew now, we would have sent these people to France to go train, to go spend a day at the art gallery, to sit with somebody to explain what in these books, to how to identify the risk, which means art is stolen all around the world. We're dealing with pieces of art that cost $10 million. Okay, and these people were paid more than 100. These 2 trust officers were paid like $90,000 and $100,000 to
right.
manage
So
this one account. That's this was a big deal.
So based on what you're saying, compliance wouldn't just be, I guess, what we're learning in this class. You would have to be, I guess, flexible depending on the nature of the business and I guess the nature of your client too. Because let's say they had like a fleet of cars and they like all European models, you would still have to, I guess, now educate yourself in makes and models and where these things are derived from as well. So
you better, because there's a lot of stolen car, the big stolen car ring. And so either you send your person out to get training or you hire somebody, and these get very mad when they hire the Spanish speaking or the French speaking client. You should have some type of consultant. You're making billions of dollars. You should invest it wisely, to protect your institution. Because like I say, we were very profitable. The whole bank closed down.
yeah, that was unfortunate.
Yeah. So 33 persons lost. Bahamians lost their job for one account.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's crazy. Yeah. But we've learned, what have we learned? When we take these positions, I'm saying you can take a position that you're not qualified for. But trust me, you better have a consultant or you better get in school. But we just so happy we have an office and a cell phone and gas and a life a key, all the dinners and the lunches and the customers, we arrive. We ain't thinking about the risk. How much times they had lunch, they flew to Paris and they used to brag, oh, we're flying to Paris and blah, 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 until they had to fly to Paris to go to court. Then they wouldn't want to go no more to Paris because they're excited. They wasn't bragging no more. And then 2 days after they had left Paris, they had the bombings. They definitely didn't want to go. They say, oh, it's below our pay grade. We shouldn't be going to Paris. Yeah, so now all the glitz and glam was removed. Okay? But yeah, we are required to know our customer. And then know them, not on the surface. Okay? So let's get into chapter 6 quickly because Ms. Bullet done talk too much. I'm out right now. And so let me go through this as quickly as possible. Make sure y'all understand. Yes, go ahead.
I think you had mentioned something about concentration risk when you were speaking.
Yes, I did.
I didn't see that listed here in the chapter.
It won't be. This is just an overview, Melissa.
Okay.
Every single thing won't be listed, and single thing won't be listed in policy. Okay? In the absence, you say what is best practice.
Okay.
That was the first what should I say, example that came to my head. So that's a risk as well. As you move up into ICA and stuff, you will see everything listed, but just again, this is just an overview.
Like the basic for us who are just coming into this.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Any other questions before I go into 6? Okay. So Statutory means required by law. Okay, the very popular question. Everybody gets 100% on this. This might even be one of the homework questions. Okay, so there are 5 statutory requirements in the financial services sector. That means there are 5 things that are the basics and they are required by law. The first one is identification. Then it's record keeping. Then you must have an MLRO on staff. Then you must train your staff. And then you must monitor. They are the 5 things that's required. And so primarily when internal audit and inspectors come in, they can't check every function, but they definitely check those 5, okay? So this should be, most of us work in the financial service sector. This is straight out the central bank guidelines, identification, okay? It says there are 2 international standards for implementing a risk-based approach to customer due diligence. They go on to talk about the Basel Committee's banking supervision is issued in 2001, and that established customer due diligence. I think I would have mentioned, I'm not certain, but with the 40 recommendations, from recommendation 10 all the way to 24 deals with customer due diligence. So that's what 14 of the 40 recommendations that are specific to customer due diligence. And this document recognizes that adequate KYC policies and procedures have particular relevance to the safety and soundness of banks, to prevent reputational risks, to preserve the veracity of the banking system, and to complement the risk management strategy. Okay, then it goes on to say, talk about the statutory requirements. There's a lot of confusion on what the duty of our duties are in the financial services sector. Our duty as staff of the financial services sector is to know your customer. It's not customer due diligence. Customer due diligence is what we do after we know, we gather information and then we verify it and corroborate it and make sure it's sound. Okay, but we are required to know our customer. That's a multiple choice question. People still get it wrong. Okay, so make sure you understand that. Melissa, you want to ask another question?
Oh, no, sorry.
No? Okay, okay, good. So there are 2 main constituents of a person's identity: the physical identity, name, date of birth, registration number, what have you, and then the activity undertaken. Okay, so one of the common problems with the names, we use a lot of aliases. We spell foreign names wrong. We definitely can't pronounce them. We miss a number out on the national insurance card. The voter's card, if you make a change, they cross it out or they white out, so we don't know if it's legitimate. All sorts of problems, right? Across the industry, I attended a seminar where they said industry-wide, the KYC documentation is gravely deficient. And it's just because we have one set of eyes just writing up information and we don't have a verification department. Because no company wants to spend extra money to verify. So salespeople out there filling out these forms aggressively, manipulating forms because they ain't getting paid unless this account open. Then it goes to compliance. Compliance is supposed to be independent. Compliance should not be telling a salesperson how to do their job. There should be a verification department that says this is expired, the name is spelled wrong, they didn't sign in all the places, and what have you, but that doesn't happen. Okay, so we understand, there's an alias. Robert is Bob, Samuel is Sammy, and so all these different aliases. And so the activity undertaken, again, back in the day, we have a lot of files that need to be remediated. Hopefully projects have started for remediation. The activity undertaken is, what are you going to do on this account? What is the purpose of this account? Okay, and this is where the customer generates a profile. A question a few years ago in ICA, as the essay that had to be written, was, how do you establish a unusual transaction? Okay, this is how you establish, this is where it starts with the activity undertaken. You document a profile. If you go outside that profile, this is where it becomes unusual. This is how suspicion starts. And for some reason, a lot of people did not even know how it started, okay? Because we didn't do it in the past. I even worked at a company where their forms, they had a 45-page docket that had to be filled out in order to open an account, but they didn't ask the customer the right questions, okay? CBB is Central Bank of the Bahamas, okay? And so you must establish the profile. In the profile, you said, what is the purpose of this account? The purpose of this account is for investment into cryptocurrency. And a very familiar place, our very good Edison Sumner would have gone in the bank and said, I want to open an account. It's for cryptocurrency. I'm going to send Nicole, Owen, and Mikhail down to make a deposit to the Scotia Bank. Scotia Bank accepted this money. Each of them put in $100,000 into this account that would have been for cryptocurrency. Okay? But what happened at the Scotia Bank was that nobody monitored that account, and at that time, we wasn't paying attention to the profile that was established. This was for cryptocurrency. This was for investment purposes. And so we took Owen, Nicole, and Mikhail's money. We deposited to the account, and then Edison Sumner and his business partner sent in a transfer request. Say, buy me some tickets to Disney World. Buy me a BMW. Buy me a Rolex watch. Pay for some tickets to go to Buju. And what did the Scotia Bank do? Issue the check to Buju, there goes the ticket. Send Edison and his children to Disney World and buy the BMW. Okay, did the signatures match? Yes. Was it within? They said this, they was gonna deposit $1,000, or no, say each person was deposit $100,000. We expecting $1 million every month and $1 million in withdrawals. Did these transactions fit into that profile? Did the signature match? But was this for cryptocurrency? So when Owen, Nicole, and Mikhail waited 2 years and they say they didn't get no return, they tried to find out what was going on with Edison Sumner, and they could get no response. So they say, well, anyway, we give our money to the Scotia Bank, let's see what happens. What happened is that money bought a BMW. So where did the Scotia Bank go wrong? Nicole? Owen, that's your $100,000. Tell us, where's Scotia Bank going wrong?
Okay, well, I was asking another question, but as it relates to where they gone wrong, I mean, they should have look at the evaluate their policies. When you pull out your account, you have to put how much money and so forth that you intend to spend, and how much money you intend to transact through this account.
They spent, right, so they established the frequency and they was in the range, so that was fine.
Oh, okay.
What was the purpose? And the signatures did match. But Mikhail and Owen and Nicole's money was to invest in cryptocurrency, not buy them a BMW, correct?
So it's outside the profile identification of transactions or activity.
Correct. Are we checking that today? Or we reached there yet in our training for these business accounts?
To piggyback on that a bit, with business accounts, you have to update this every year, right? I mean, with certain information.
No, not every year. It depends on whether you're medium, low, or high. So each year, and that's when we get to monitoring. When you monitor, if you're rated low risk, they monitor it every 3 years. If you're high risk, every year, and if you're medium, every 2 years. Okay, but you know, we were trained, if the signature match, put it through. If it was in 80 and over their limit, put it through. But now we have to go a step further and see if it's within the profile, because these companies are not holding their own money, they're holding other person's money, and we are the gatekeeper, so we have to protect, you know, we have to help protect the customers. Okay, so identification, full and correct name, 2 or more means of contacting the customer, date and place of birth, purpose of the account, and the nature of the business relationship. And again, all of us, if we don't work in financial services sector, we have an accountant, so we know how we are scrutinized when we walk into these banks and we get, we open these accounts. All this would we have to bring in, okay? And this is why, okay? Nationality, occupation. Nationality, I don't want to get into the debate. I think it's different from citizenship, but a lot of people is fighting me to the death over nationality, you know? And my most recent case was somebody was born in Afghanistan, which is a blocked country, but they've lived in the US for the last 20 years. And so they didn't want me to include that they were born in Afghanistan, because that would cause the account not be able to open. And so of course I said, okay, be required to know our customer. Where's this person's parents in Afghanistan? Do they have any kids? Yes, in Afghanistan. The person is engaged to somebody in Afghanistan. Are they still affiliated with Afghanistan? What would be your view? I see Tira Johannes, what do you think? This person's still affiliated with Afghanistan, even though that they have US citizenship?
Yes, ma'am, because
Okay.
isn't that how a lot of the terrorist attack actually happened?
Correct.
Like the Boston bombing and stuff. They
Correct.
actually were living in the States, but actually had ties with Afghanistan.
Right, right. And their beliefs and their ideologies are still the same. And they sending that money up. These people come across the world to have a better life, to be able to take care of their children and their parents and whomever they would have left back home. Okay, so nationality, where you born, and your citizenship should be included. That's just my, you know, but I ain't fighting you with that. Occupation and name of employer, estimated level of account activity, how many deposits, how often, transaction volume, all of that. Source of funds, you get that for medium and low risk customers. Source of wealth, you get for high risk customers, okay? For companies, memorandum and articles of association, incorporation, board resolution authorizing to open the account, certificate of good standing. And this is gotten one, if it's a new company, they don't give a good standing till 1 year after. So you have to put a note in the system. 1 year after, I need to get the certificate of good standing, and then every year thereafter, okay? And this is where we fall down a lot. We have to know if these companies are struck off of the registers general, whatever it is, get struck off, okay? You need to make sure that you get that good standing every year. Everybody who, we have to get a register of directors and members, and we want to Google and we'll check all of those persons to make sure that they're fit and proper. Anybody who has 10% or more shares has to be verified. That means they must bring in their passports and national insurance and proof of address and what have you. And this used to say 25%, and you saw people with registers saying they own 24%. Now it's 10%. We have people saying that they own 8%. And so that's a red flag for me, because why doesn't this person want to be verified? So I still run their names. I don't ask them for extra documents, but I do run their names because that's kind of suspicious to me, okay? And if this is another place that we would have fallen down, if there's a bulletin code on the register of shareholders, then you must find out who Bullard and Co is. That could be Bullard and Bin Laden. So there should be a nominee agreement that says Bullard and Co is owned by Ms. Bullard, Owen, and Tennille. And so we would need information on all those parties. So where you see a company, you must always get to the natural person. Okay, Owen, go ahead.
Okay, I want to ask a question as it relates to verification of address, right? I know some persons, like the banks, they will accept your voter's card, and some they will want, like, they will accept the voter's card and they want a printout of a utility bill. I mean, what's the differentiation between the two?
It's just internal policy. There's none. Some banks, okay, what I've noticed is that the Canadian banks are more conservative. They don't ever want to be in problems with the regulator, and so they are more stringent. So if the regulator asks for one piece of ID, they will get asked for two, for human error sake, right? Whereas the Swiss banks, they say, it's too much regulation. This hampers the ease of doing business. We only need one, right? So it just depends on the conservativeness and the willingness to follow all this law. Okay, so that's policy. The law says verify, and again with FACA and CRS, you have to prove residency now. So really, they can't escape it. That's just an extra step. More for the offshore world. We don't have that problem because we're not a tax jurisdiction. I mean, we don't have taxes that Bahamians try to evade, like that. We don't have the income tax. Okay, and so all of these documentations, like I say, across the board, industry-wide, is gravely deficient. They are not certified, and you can now get a teacher, even a doctor of medicine, the justice of the peace. All these persons to certify. Most certifications when in the offshore world come in another language, and so we can't even read the name who certify it, and it's not clear. But the central bank has had so many issues with this, where they say everything must be in English because we don't know Spanish and Russian and all these different things. Everything must be in English, and this certification must also be translated into English. And we need to verify that this person is Rodney Monka really a justice of the peace? Or I see a talk show host. So you wanna, for these funny countries, you wanna ensure that you check all this information and verify it, okay? And so another issue that I see is that we get all this good information, we fill out the 45 page, but we don't corroborate. We say that Ms. Bullard only makes $2,000 a month, but she's saying she could deposit $100,000. Did we account for where she getting this extra money from? No, we don't. I just went into a bank to open an account, and I went to open a business account, and they asked me no information about the business, but my rental income. And I tried to explain to them that my rental income has nothing to do with this business. I have information on the business and where I got the money from to establish the business. And they weren't interested, but they were more so interested in my rental income. So I said, okay, fine, here are my lease agreements. They did not cooperate because I said I was a recipient of this and that. And they should have said, let us see your recipient letter, let us see how much money you got and blah, blah, blah. No, they wanted my rental income. So I gave it to them. I said, fine, I just need this account open. And that's what happens. The information is not corroborated. There's Michelle Reckley. She was in charge of urban renewal. She was up, between CIBC and the Teachers Credit Union, she had $1.3 million as a government employee, okay? If your salary, don't, how will you get it from? And I mean, people have other legitimate sources, but you must cooperate, you must, verify. We asked for 3 years of financial statement, but we don't know how to see if a company is profitable. We don't send it to the accounting department. We don't have to know all these things, but we still have to verify. So get those 3 years of financials, send it to the accounts department, let them confirm that this company is profitable. But there are basics that you should be able to look out for. Okay, so stop just getting information, corroborate it, ensure it makes sense. And establish profiles and make sure we gone are the days when we could just check the signature. We have to make sure that it's within the profile. Okay? Record keeping. Again, depending on who your regulator is, this central bank says 5 years after an account is closed, you must still have that account information. Okay, the Securities Commission says 7 years. Again, if you're a Canadian bank, if the central bank says 5 years, you will keep it for 7 years. If the Securities Commission says 7, you can keep it for 10, because for a human error. Okay, so you want a good archiving policy. You want to take your filing department and your archiving department, your offsite storage seriously. We think we just need somebody who could not be, you know, take the tediousness of filing. No, you need an educated person who is organized, who could explain to you where things are, because when you have to produce them or they are very big fines. Okay, if you cannot produce this information, if it's not kept properly. Okay, so just find out what your regulator states and what is required. Training, again, back in my day, I used to run the people down and say, oh, please, 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 come to training. Nobody took it seriously. Now people take it seriously. Now before I used to just send to the regulator our training logs. Now the regulator wants the training logs. They want to know how much employees we have, 33. They want to see 33 signatures. They're spot checking to make sure that's Owen. You said Owen? Yeah, Owen signed. They want a copy of the training there. They want persons to be tested and they want grades. And that's how a training has evolved over a period of time, okay? And they are checking. And so you have to ensure that your staff are properly trained, okay? And training has been expanded. It used to be just entry-level staff, but now it's entry-level, all aspects. Consultants even have to be trained, and the board, okay? And so then the book goes on to talk about what type of training should be for new employees, employees dealing with the public, account opening. Again, this is another, if you don't get the full statutory requirement question, then you get the training one. And then you explain each various stage and what is required. And training for the prior year should be completed by January 31st, which is Monday. The entire staff body, the consultants and the board. So on February 1st, you should see an ad in the paper sometime in February where the FIU will be stating that any company that has not carried out training will be subject to $10,000 per day per person. You should see that in the ad, you know, the newspaper in the coming months. And I just had somebody call me and said, I missed this statutory training. Is that true? We could get fined? I said, oh, yes, it is. So don't miss it. And you could cost a fine to your company. And of course, you know, that means you may go home. So be very careful of that. Okay. And then monitoring. Let me see. Okay, good. Good, Tira, you answered Owen. Okay, very good. Okay, so statutory training of monitoring. After we get all this good information, the account is open, it's established. You want to ensure that it's monitored. So what will happen is each account will be risk rated in high, medium, or low. And again, this can be flexible depending on your organization. And so if you're high, you're monitored each year. If you're medium, you're monitored every 2 years. If you're low risk, then you're monitored every 3 years. That's the general stance on how companies work. And so they have a risk rating form, and then they have a client monitoring form where they talk about the transaction type. They look through all the transactions to make sure you stayed within your profile. They look to see if you stayed within the frequency. They look to ensure that, you know, the signatures match. And so the account officer should carry out these various checks and balances and to make sure that you're staying in line what you, said you would do. And so this is why I recommend that there's a vetting department, first of all, and then there's a sales people who are out on the road trying to bring in the business, and then they have administrative assistants to make sure that they get all of these administrative tasks done. Okay, so that's how we monitor, and things change. Remember, you are required to know your customer, so you want to ask the right questions. Anything substantial change, and this was a conversation I had a few years back, talking to one of my customers who were low risk, and he said, "Oh yes, I got married." I said, "Oh, good, congratulations. Who did you marry?" And he said, "I married the deputy." Was it the deputy at the time? No. Oh, I married the opposition leader's daughter. I said, "Really? Oh, congratulations." So what happened? And we'll find out in the next 2 pages of what happened there. Right, very good, Justine. So now my low risk client who had that account for the last 10 years would have married a PEP, right? And it's now considered a PEP, okay? And that's where we're going into simplified and enhanced due diligence. And so through my monitoring, I found out that now he's categorized as a PEP. But after monitoring, let me just cover the MLRO. And again, the last statutory requirement is the MLRO, the Money Laundering Reporting Officer. It normally is the same as the compliance officer. It could be different. Normally, whoever's the head of the compliance department is considered the MLRO for the organization. When you're getting a business license as a new company, one of the requirements for you to be approved is that you must have the MLRO on staff. And so if you don't have that MLRO on staff, then you're not approved. Not only do you have that MLRO on staff, that's a regulated function. That means you can put an ad in the paper, you can select Ms. Bullitt. However, the regulator must ensure that Ms. Bullitt is fit and proper and give you an approval for Ms. Bullitt to be the MLRO. After the regulator would have given that approval, then you submit information to the FIU, as this is my registered person who you should accept information on behalf of this organization from. You will find that the regulator and the FIU will say, "Give me a private name and a private number, a person I can call in case of an emergency, and I need a private email address, and I need directions to your house." In case they wanna, somebody blew the whistle and they wanna speak to you privately. Go ahead, Owen.
Okay, you said when you open up a business, you need a money laundering office, reporting officer on staff. That's for any business or just
in the financial services sector?
Oh, okay.
It falls under the insurance commission, the gaming board, the banks, the brokers, real estate, law firms and account firms that have a corporate service provider that they provide financial services. So excuse me, not the lawyers that do criminal, but the Higgs and Johnsons, or the big Deloitte and Touche, or the Ernst & Young, those types. Okay? So regulated function. Again, this never happens, but the MLRO is independent of the business. They should report to the board. They should not be influenced. They should never be operational. They are to receive STRs, evaluate them, and then decide if they should be sent to the FIU. They are to ensure that the entire business follows the laws and is compliant. They are basically the checker. And so you want to avoid, which most companies don't, avoid the checker checking the checker. And this is why proper segregation of duties is very important. Okay, Nicole, go ahead.
I have a question, Ms. Bullard, and it's related to the know your customer aspect. So I read this week about the acquisition of Ann Sparker by Delta Bank, and they were just, elaborating on the merge and talking about, well, they actually didn't make any comments on job layoffs or if they would retain all the staff, blah, blah, blah. But my question
Sorry,
is—
Nicole, what happened? What happened?
Delta Bank is purchasing Ann's backup.
Are you sure?
Yeah, it was in the papers.
Wow.
Yes, I saw that too.
Yeah,
Both of those
that's
banks,
right.
both
That's right.
both of those
Pardon?
banks, have major problems, but I think Delta's problems are bigger than Ann's Backup, so I'm very surprised.
Right. So my question is, as it relates to the know your customer principle. So Delta Bank now taking on Ann's Packer clients. And let's just say in the whole, I guess, revamping of staffing and employment, they decide to let a certain percentage of employees go. How does that now work with those employees that would have built that history of relations with those customers? And now you're operating under a whole new umbrella, which would be considered, I guess, to some degree, new profiles.
Yeah,
Do they
but this
to
happened
swap?
like, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Well, I just wanted to know, does it mean now that the new employees, like let's just say Delta Bank employees now, do they now have to go from the beginning with getting to know these persons, or is there like
Yeah.
a carryover procedure? How does that work?
Yeah, they have to get to know the customer. They have to go and do client reviews and find out what book of business they are buying. Or more than likely, they'll keep 3 or 4 persons. They normally hire the person and they buy the portfolio. They don't just get the portfolio without the person. But people leave jobs all the time. So they have to keep some of the staff. That would be in their best interest, or their staff that's there has a lot of work to do already.
Okay.
Yeah, but more than likely they bought the portfolio of business with that person. Or that person, does send out information to their client and says, this is what has happened, your new account officer, and they hand over the information. But this is how a lot of banks start. So people already know Nicole. We don't want anybody else to deal with our money. We already vetted her. She's been our account officer for years. Now Nicole could go get a corporate service provider's bank, those customers could follow up. So it'd be in Delta's best interest to hire that salesperson because they can follow that person who they already comfortable with. Or they can lose a lot of business.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the 5 statutory requirements. That's how it works. They're required by law. Okay. So then the book goes on to talk about simplified and enhanced due diligence. Sorry. So simplified, again, would be for medium and low risk clients where perhaps a compliance officer is on staff. They will approve these types of accounts. If it's simplified due diligence, you're just doing the basics. And this is a popular question too, because a lot of people, again, can't explain it. What do you do for simplified? I ask for source of income. For enhanced, I will ask for source of wealth. For simplified due diligence, I will let the compliance officer approve. For enhanced, I will let a committee approve. For simplified, I will just do a world check. For enhanced, I will do a Google check as well as a world check. And some companies, like when they deal with very high risk countries, there's a report called, a proximal report, it costs $1,500. And so we tell the customer, you tried to open an account everywhere else you're unable to, you can pay $1,500 for this proximal report. Okay. And people pay for it. So that's another step to enhance due diligence. So normally questions will be like compare and contrast the difference between simplify and enhance. And then there's another section where there's an exemption. Countries that are regulated can be exempted. Countries that, not countries, but it says a banking trust company or credit union regulated by the central bank. A company carrying on life assurance, an investment fund, anybody registered on the stock securities exchange, right? But let's look at, but this specifically says the central bank, but let's look at the island locks, okay? Or let's even look at Royal Bank. Royal Bank, remember, very conservative. They said, yeah, sure. The regulators say we can exempt, meaning that we don't need to get KYC, but we don't accept exempted account. So even though that jail Scotiabank, if the Scotiabank wants to open an account with Royal Bank, you still have to bring your passport, your proof of address, and all your KYC documents for your company, your business license. Because if something happens, we're not going to wait for the regulator to send us the information. We want to have it on file. So even though, like I said, you can be more stringent, but you can't be less stringent than the regulator. Okay, so simplified versus enhanced is just with the steps. What are the steps that you would take if you were going to open up an account under simplified versus enhanced? And under enhanced, we move on to PEPs, and we see the definition for politically exposed persons, any prominent figure, any function, any senior position, and then all your family members, okay? And again, too, in IZA, this was a very popular question, and persons simply did not know where they were coming from. They said, you know, explain the definition of a PEP. And persons, of course, went directly to the central bank guideline and just quoted all your friends, your family, and your prominent position or what have you. But the basis of that question was that in different countries, the definition is different. And so in Mexico, the definition of a PEP is way more stringent than it is in the UK. And so that was the premise for that paper. So in Mexico and Russia, they say all civil servants are PEPs and are to be treated as such. And so, you know, that's how you answered that question. But it just means that in some countries, the definition is more expansive. And so again, awareness, nobody wants a high risk portfolio. So primarily, if your portfolio is high risk, or more than 50%, then your overall institution is high risk. So just like the governor has put things in place to ensure that the country doesn't get a high risk rating, banks say only 20% of our business can be high risk because we don't want to, you know, be levied higher fees, and we don't want to do the be subjected to enhanced due diligence every time we need to do business. And so therefore, you know, Scotiabank, CIBC, Royal Bank says we don't do the number boys. We don't do, and again, before Royal Bank, as long as I know, had all of the number boys accounts. And each one closed out one by one, and now they don't even do business with them. Same as the money services businesses, they're too cash intensive. Okay, we don't want to be subjected to that enhanced due diligence. So the enhanced due diligence is for the high risk in PEPs and just the extra steps that we take to mitigate risk against these higher risk persons. Ms. Bullet choking over here, you'll have to excuse me 1 second. Any questions or concerns? Do we understand the simplified versus the enhanced?
I think so.
Sure, because a lot of people, like I say, it's a very popular question, and a lot of people cannot answer it properly.
One question I had, you were saying that the low risk clients are evaluated every 1 year, the medium 2 years, and the high risk 3 years?
No, you have it backwards. You have it backwards. So high risk is annually or every year. Medium is every 2 years, and low risk is every 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they evaluate or they audit it, or?
Yeah, they do a review. So like I said, just how I found out that this guy had married the Brave Davis' daughter. And so I was reviewing him every 3 years, checking his transactions, making sure he stayed within his profile, making sure that his business account that said was for investment. He didn't buy a BMW or go to Buju and buy these tickets, or, you know. stuff like that, to ensure that I protected his customers for the company he ran. Okay, but now he is married a pair. And so now he has been politically exposed. And so he had to now, him and his company had to now be reviewed annually.
So who does this review? The compliance professional or?
Well, they, again, that would make the compliance professional very operational. And everything that nobody else in the institution wants to do and the institution wants to spend money falls on the compliance. So the account officer is required to know the client. And so the account officer should do the review. Now, normally, in some institutions, they just have compliance do all, which shouldn't be done because compliance should not know the customer better than the account officer. But if it's a properly run institution, then the account officer would do the reviews and compliance would sign off on the high risk ones. Okay? Because remember now, these companies don't want to be high risk. So compliance would maintain a high risk list and know which percentage of the business is high risk. And they would monitor them annually. So just a second eye look, compliance should be doing on the high risk ones only. They can spot check the medium and low. Like if you have 100 low risk customers, you spot check, you do a percentage like or at 25%, you wouldn't check every single one, right? And the ones that would have increased in rating, like he went from low to high, like you would check those ones that where the rating would have been changed after the account was assessed.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Is it possible you could run through but 2 or 3 examples of the simplified and enhanced too for me so I could get a better understanding?
Okay, so you have a pen. I want you to make a list. I want you to
Okay, yeah. I'm doing that right now.
Yeah, so do a chart, simplified on one side, enhance on the next. And Owen, this is a very good thing that you're asking because like I said, most persons say yes and then they leave confused. And you see the confusion in the essay or for homework or you see it on the exam. So very good.
Okay.
Okay, so now we on the simplified side.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so source of income.
Source of income, okay.
Compliance officer to approve.
Compliance officer to approve, okay.
Monitoring every 2 or 3 years.
Okay, monitoring every 2 to 3 years. Uh-huh.
And exempted accounts allowed.
And exempted accounts allowed, okay.
Okay, on the enhanced due diligence side.
Uh-huh.
Committee or the board approves.
Okay, committee or board. Oh, wow. That deep?
Yeah.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Source of wealth.
Okay, source of wealth.
Google searches, world check, proximal report, all in one.
World check and
Google searches.
World check, uh-huh.
Google searches.
Google searches, world check.
And proximal report.
And proximal, what is proximal report?
Proximal report is a report where this independent company that works with like Interpol would go into your country and do a history search on you.
Okay.
And see if you were ever affiliated with money launderers or terrorist finance, and they say where you work, who your wife is, who your family is. Very detailed report on if you are corrupt or not.
Okay, okay. And that's it?
Review every year.
Okay. Okay. All right, thanks.
Okay, yeah. And so you would just put that in. You could actually, people draw the chart in the exam and just a little introduction between the two, once a customer has been identified and an account is established, the profile has been generated. The next step is to risk rate that account and find out if that account is high, medium, or low. If it's high, we do enhanced due diligence. If it's medium or low, we do simplify. And then you go on with the chart. Okay?
Thanks.
Perfect.
Thanks for that.
Good. I hope that's one of the exam questions. Titus, you were the only people who sat there and didn't say no, Miss Bullet, make it a little clearer. So I applaud that. Is that one of the homework questions? And I just give you an answer.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Miss
None
Sally does.
of y'all going to question 3.
That's
Y'all can
four
do
though.
it.
That's question 4.
That's question 4. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question, Miss Bullard.
Yes, go ahead.
Whether or not for PEP, right? Whether or not you're still in office, once you've been in office and has been politically appointed, you will always be a PEP, right?
Okay, so the central bank had in its guidelines that a PEP is no longer a PEP after they demit office in 1 year. Okay, that was in 2018. So all of the people who still behind never update their policy. When the central bank did the update, they moved that, right? And so I've seen where audit has written up companies who do not have people assessed properly. And so they moved it. And so people are left to say, well, what is the new rule? Okay. And basically they're saying it's up to you, depending on which jurisdiction you're in. And so to me, once a PEP, always a PEP. But we have some people sitting on our board who are PEPs who say, no, we shouldn't be scrutinized for the rest of our life, blah, 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 blah. And so the central bank allows you to add that into your framework. So you have to document what your policy is, and they're going to test you by it. So you can say, once a PEP, PEP is no longer after he demits office in 5 years and does not be like on the road, like Perry Christie and Hubert Ingram, who was all up in the election. They've been out of office for a very long time, but they're still very active and probably y'all know what I mean. Why I can't pronounce the word. Giving consultation, right?
I asked a question because I couldn't understand how come an account officer, well, I guess the daughter was young when the parent was in politics, but they actually didn't know that the politician was her father and didn't know that she was PEP. So that was when she was in high school, because I went to school with them. They just realized years after, as an adult, that she was a PEP.
Right. So you are required to know your customer. So again, when you world check, now world check is there, that should come up. Or when you Google check, that should come up that this person, you know, is the daughter or affiliated or what have you. So, you know, but sometimes you just don't know. And if you don't know, as soon as you do know, you need to update the account. There's a lot of stepchildren out there and little private children out there, you know, but I found that out that this person had an account with us for 5 years, low risk, had a problem, and asked to speak to compliance. And I said, oh, compliance does not speak to customers. You have to relay your message, you know, to the salesperson or the account officer. And he said, do you know who I am? What do you mean compliance does not talk to me? This is my father. I say, you are not Mrs. blah, blah, blah sons. Not to the person, you know what I mean? And he sure wasn't, but I was sure the father. So in that case, we did, he had that account as low risk for 5 years until he said, the prime minister is my daddy. Yeah. Okay. So then we had to update his account. We thanked him for that information, of course, but not compliance, you know. But so do your proper due diligence and know your customer. your organization has to make the decision. Is it 5 years after you demit office or 10 years? Look at Alfred Sayers, who's now the minister, works. I mean, I don't know if he ran in the elections, but I know he was the minister something 100 years ago, but he's back there now. So that's why I stick with once a PEP, always a PEP. But you do have the people on the board rowing and fighting for these things to be changed because they are PEPs. And they don't want to be subjected to the enhanced due diligence. Okay, so business makes the decision and documents it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And if you have an appetite for PEP, they don't, that's a big problem. They are just not categorized correct. I had one company that had the government of Antigua, the government of St. Kitts, and then say they have no PEPs on file. I said, but who signed on these government accounts? Not the Minister of Finance. Like, how could you have government accounts but no PEP accounts? Come on, that's ridiculous, right? So make sure what you have in policy, if your risk appetite says you don't have an appetite for PEPs, then you cannot have PEPs on your in your portfolio, or you have to change your policy. That's a note right there that you'll get written up for. How do I say this? Joint ventures with the government. So if you're working offshore and you have a lot of Venezuelan accounts, Venezuela is heavily sanctioned by the US and Canada. There's the oil and gas company called PDVSA. PDVSA is owned by the government. 90% of the persons that work in Venezuela or the companies in Venezuela, they are affiliated with PDVSA. They dig the holes for the oil, so they provide the rubbering for the oil, so they do the maintenance for the gas or something, right? And so in countries like Venezuela, the government does not give you a business license. They give you business licenses to open up a company. However, they own 60% and you own 40%. So they are the major shareholder. So make sure when you have these company accounts, especially out of Venezuela, you find out if their government allows them. But right off the top, almost every 99% of the companies out of Venezuela are state-owned because the government owns 60%. Okay, so make sure you categorize that properly. Okay, because that's a PEP. And many of us don't know that, right? So joint venture with the government, you're a PEP. Okay. Then we had this person come in and say, he is the head of the drug enforcement unit. So they say, Ms. Bullet, would he be a PEP? I say, of the drug enforcement unit, why would the drug enforcement unit be a PEP? Then they send me this next piece of paper after the account open. He reports to the prime minister. I say, man, y'all don't do it. What head of the drug enforcement unit? They have a minister of national security. They had a defense force. They had everything. Why the drug enforcement unit, which is like an association, not the police drug enforcement unit, but like an association? Why would he be reporting to the prime minister? I say, okay, thank you all for making it easy for me out of these funny countries that we don't understand. If he reports to the prime minister, he is a PEP. Anybody who reports to the prime minister is a PEP. So be careful of these very crafty people who know how to defraud the system and know what banks look for. And so they come up with these things. Because they know that our definition of a PEP is different from other countries, but you still must have notes in your know your customer. This person is a civil servant in Mexico, where Mexico considers all persons civil servants as PEPs. So you just have that in your notes to show that you have the awareness. Okay, any other questions or concerns? Or Miss Bullock, you'd go dress up in her winter clothes, but he ain't been out for 2 years now.
Miss Bullitt, I have a question I want to ask you regarding the paper once you've dismissed class, please.
You have a question regarding, sorry, say that again?
Regarding the paper, one of the papers, once you've dismissed class, please.
Okay, sure.
Sim, I have a question as well after class.
Okay, that's fine. Just stay on. Anybody who has a question.
I have one now. You didn't see it because it was a trail of messages, but I'd asked if your brother-in-law is a PEP, would you be considered one as well? Because it says close family member. So I'm wondering if they would put that in that category.
Whether who is?
If your brother-in-law is a
Oh, yes, of course. That's your husband's brother.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. You are a PEP.
Okay, well.
You just send the money to your account, Melissa.
Okay.
Because being a no, you sitting up on that board was my husband's sister. Even though they finding them out left, right, and center. You see all these sisters and brothers and cousins? That's my husband's sister.
But it would be so obvious if you share the same last name. I would think you would do it with someone else.
Sorry, Melissa, I can't hear you. Sorry, say that again.
I would think you would send the money on someone's account that don't share the same last name because that's so obvious.
Yeah, but they think nobody checking. They think, these people who want to be in the government, man, listen to me. We didn't have investigative press, and I applaud Clint for bringing investigative press, but Clint done go and switch on us now. So yeah, we need the investigative press. We need somebody. Kyle walking just left our news. Hopefully he get no position. We waiting to see where he going.
I was wondering where he went.
Yeah, so let's see. But we need that investigative press and persons who aren't afraid to ask the hard questions. Shanique doing an okay job, but you see how Fred was insulted by Shanique for asking relevant questions. We don't have any lobbyists. We really need to get that.
I'm very disappointed in him, but she brought out some receipts on him.
Yeah. And I mean, I just want to show you how boldly Fred know he done travel around the world 10 times. And he dare sit up there and be, like these people who are blatant. Shane Gibson done get away. I mean, had 10 rodeos, always on a technicality and suing the government for God. My God, these people have no shame. But anyway, but I don't want y'all to take me as PLBOF and them. We just stating the facts.
Well, I'm none either.
Yeah, we just stating facts. We for the country. So we need some lobbyists out there. Okay. Anybody else? Or we'll sign off and we'll enjoy the cold and we'll do this again next week. Now, nobody has their 5%. So this week, cold or not, you better get to these civic organizations because we don't want a whole class filled people just telling us about Toastmasters and whatever.
I went, but I didn't talk about it in the class because you was asking for
several of us that did.
Yeah, we all went to one.
Oh, y'all don't want no point. I guess y'all next week is the next.
That was my question. Is how were you supposed to know if we actually attended an event?
What'd you say? How are you? What? Say that again.
We never went back and said that we did go to the Toastmasters group. Yeah, but we were invited, and several of us were in the Toastmasters Zoom meeting, or whatever they would call that. But so, yeah,
in the first half an hour of class, we had to discuss the newspaper clipping and anybody who would have went to the civic organization.
So what if you are a Toastmaster and a Rotarian?
No, ONB said we don't tell you this in the first class. You have to go to a class, one of these sessions this week and tell us. And if you're already Toastmaster, we want you to visit Kiwanis. Then if you're a Toastmaster and a Rotarian, we want you to visit Kiwanis.
A group of us attended the
Toastmasters. I was last
right. I think Renee is saying that the entire class has been to my Toastmasters club.
Yeah, you show us the entire class.
The one with the speech.
Yeah, you can show us the
entire class.
Wait now. The entire class, because Owen ain't been.
It was a group of
except Owen. Yeah.
Oh, I said don't say the entire class. Let me see. It's 19 people.
I was there.
I was there.
I was
went.
there.
Who wasn't there? Tell me, because send everybody else been. Tell me.
I don't know who wasn't. I know I was.
Okay, we know Owen wasn't there. Who else?
I didn't
Owen
attend.
wasn't there, but everyone else was there because we were talking about the speeches and how some of them were wild, but the
Yeah.
The
organization.
marathon one, I know I went to that one.
The one with the dog, that's the one we went to.
Yeah.
That's the one where
Okay, so so persons attended two separate
The
two.
first week.
Okay,
the first
Renika didn't go. So
invite.
Owen and Renika didn't go.
No,
Okay.
ma'am,
And the
I went to
invite
the
was
one with the
sent out
dog.
to the group, and it was
Right.
quite a number of us that attended.
Okay, except for Renika and Owen. What about
Mr.
you,
Land,
Ben?
please
Ben, did you
That's
go?
correct.
No, I didn't have an opportunity to attend.
All right, so okay, tell me the persons that did not go. If you
So
did not
Gwen would be in
attend,
the list. I didn't go.
anybody else? Lauren, you went?
Yes, Mom, I went.
Okay, so this is what I want. It was two different programs, two different times.
One was masters, another one was something else.
Okay, so I want one person to speak on behalf of the first one, and then somebody else to tell me about the second one. Go ahead.
Well, you were right. Oh, someone else is speaking, go ahead.
No, you can go ahead.
A group of us went to Visionaries Toastmasters. They had like a Spanish type team. So I guess most of us were thinking in our mind that it was gonna be almost like bilingual oriented, but what they did have was a speech competition that night. First they started off with procedures, old business, new business. They stated who would be the topic master. I think you could correct me if that's not the correct name. And throughout, they just had different speeches and they talked, table topic master. Thank you very much, Renee. And they just went through the procedures. They had a sergeant of arms and they had like little things in between. So those are the good things I could say about it. Some of the speeches were a bit out there, but I think the Nelson Smith, I think that's his name, he did a good job of keeping it flowing, the meeting flowing. So it taught, at least it showed me the importance of having a chairperson who could help your meeting flow. Nelson, yeah, it is Nelson Smith, who helps your meeting flow and keeps it going smoothly, even if everything is not smooth. I guess if anyone else have anything to add, what they liked or highlights of it, they can.
Well, for me, I agree with you. I thought initially, based on the topic, I thought it would have been more of one centralized conversation around a specific thing. But when we got on, like she said, we learned that it was a speech competition. And I got the impression that it wasn't, they could have chosen their own topics to speak on. So it became more diverse than I personally thought it was going to be. I agree with all of your comments. It started off somewhat all over the place, but Nelson Smith did do a good job at kind of reeling us back in because there were a few of us that were ready to log off from the second speech. But he did a good job at trying to hold it all together, but it was a little bit more diverse than I thought it was going to be. I thought we were going to be talking about like one central conversation and getting input relative to that, but we were grateful for the invite nonetheless.
Okay, great. So did most of us find it beneficial?
Yes, because I've never been to a Toastmasters event before and it's good to know what they're about.
I agree. I agree.
Great. So what was the word for the day? Because I haven't heard anybody say the word for the day.
I don't recall if they had a word for the day per se. Renee, can you remember?
Toastmasters always has a word for the day.
Oh, Jesus. Renee?
The 20-year-old who been gotta go back.
No, honestly.
Nobody have the word for the day?
It was just too much going on.
Well,
Mr.
Miss
Ward.
Fuller, the internet connection was rather poor that night as well.
Right.
So even if they had said it, honestly, my connection was in and out. Like I would hear a piece of the word, then it's gone, and
it did that the entire night.
Yeah,
Renee said she can't remember. So if Renee can't remember, definitely.
The only thing I got from it was the Valier where he said intro to mentorship and the community. That was
Yeah,
the only,
I saw that.
that was the only words that I thought was the
Was this recorded?
I don't think so.
We don't think so.
Who invited everybody?
Renee is right here.
Renee, please
Renee.
contact them and find out what the word for the day is and come back and tell us next week. So everybody don't have to do this over, please. Okay? Because I almost is unless they didn't have one, and that's very strange. They always have the word for the day and they explain to you what it means and they put it in a sentence.
They were very young and dynamic and excited, so they probably overlooked the word for the day last night.
Okay, but Renee, you could find out, right? So everybody can get their points. Who would have attended?
Can I share about Rotary?
Owen say he's a Toastmaster. Owen.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a word for the day at every meeting?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct. This week, we had our international speech and tabletop is contest, so it wasn't no word of the day. But on Tuesday come in, there will be one for Toastmasters at 6 p.m. I will send the invite in the group again.
So Owen, what
Thank
you're
you, Owen.
saying is that when there are speeches going on, there usually isn't a word of the day. So we are.
You
so
should. Renee, please confirm.
They
Please
call it
confirm.
the
Thank you.
lesson.
Come back and tell me that you spoke to these people and you know, and then again, like I said, please, I want you all to see how dynamic it is. I want you all to find it beneficial. Hopefully some of you will, some of you won't. But again, this is a good place to network. So Renee will go out and find out, and Owen is going to send to the group. And please, you know, take some time and listen and come back and give me some good information, telling me that you've been and had a bad signal and blah, blah, blah. And so many of you all, that ain't work. Miss Polity and happy, like happy how y'all been making me. So y'all please get me back on track. Okay? Mikhail, can you tell us what happened in your meeting?
No, I went to the same one, the Toastmaster speech marathon. I will say that the guy, the Nelson fellow, he did say what the word of the day was. He said it in response to the table topic gentleman, but honestly, I don't remember what it was. It's a word I'd never heard before, and he did use it in a sentence. I just really don't know what it was.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mikhail. So Renee will make that phone call. Michelle, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, because I actually went to Owen's Rotary Club meeting this past Tuesday.
Okay, good. And what was the word for the day?
I didn't know Rotary did a word for the day.
Oh, no. I thought you said Toastmasters. Sorry. Oh, Rotary. Okay, so tell us what happened at Rotary.
Okay, so this is Rotary Club of Nassau. They meet on Tuesdays at lunchtime, and they had a really good speaker. They had Derek W. Smith from CG Atlantic, and the reason I actually wanted to listen in is because he's actually a CAMS, so he's a certified compliance somebody or the other.
Compliance professional, yes.
Right. Okay, so he did this really great presentation on business agility during a pandemic, and his main point was, could you have planned for a pandemic? Should you have had things in place to allow you to manage? And his answer was yes, that basically planning for a pandemic is nothing different than any other kind of disaster recovery situation, and that there are companies who had done it really well and other ones who just were completely caught with their pants down. But what I really liked is that he actually gave a really great little framework for adaptability and change. And if I have the time, I can run it through for you guys.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so he says the first thing is you figure out what the problem actually is, like frame the problem correctly. So is your problem that you need people to come into the office, but you can't because there was restrictions? So he says, define the problem you're trying to fix. And he says, the second point is change only what you have to. So figure out what the problem is, then limit the change that you're trying to make to address that problem and only that problem, not get it too overly complicated. And then he says, simplify the change. So if you can find a solution that uses your resources you already have, do that. Don't try and bring in other kinds of things, keep it very simple. And then his fourth point was subtract before you add. So before you go and add something else, like a new computer system or new people or whatever, look at what you do have, and is there something that you have that's complicating the process? Eliminate it. And he said the final thing that people really often forget is you have to verify that the change you made fixed the problem. Like he says, it's not enough simply to put in a new system or implement a new policy. If it isn't working to fix the problem, what was the whole point in the first place? So, and then he went on to talk about a few other things, but I thought that was really, really relevant and really on point. In fact, I'm thinking of evaluating a new computer system for my company right now, and I'm going to use that framework because it makes so much sense.
Yeah, and this very good, Michelle, and I wanted you to share one of the conditions of the central bank and the Securities Commission. I don't want to say the Securities Commission, but of course the central bank, is that you attest annually that your business continuity plan has been tested and it is efficient. And of course, like he said, should you have had a plan? Yes, because if you're in the financial services sector, you should have a business continuity plan. But I don't know if I said it to this class, but I want you to have a business continuity plan for your house. A lot of persons are having fires, flooding, this pandemic where everybody was sick. What happens if you share a bedroom and somebody has COVID? Where do you go? You can't put the person out, right? If the person comes out of the hospital and has to be in a room by themselves, what do you do? Okay, so have a business continuity plan for your house. How much money do you need if you have to move out of country? Do you have a second set of clothes? If your house was to burn down right now, God forbid, where would you sleep tonight? I've had somebody in one of the family islands, their house burned down, that they had 18 persons. Okay, and so they're at the church, and this is 2 months later, they're still at the church. They simply did not have a plan. Okay, and now they're gonna rebuild, but one of the things that I'm advising them, I don't think 18 persons should be living in one unit, I mean, it was big enough, but the entire thing burned down. Yeah, 18. Yeah, I miscount. I didn't miscount. It's a fire in Eleuthera. You could read it on the news. Okay, so make sure you have a business continuity plan for your home. And even if you're not in the financial services sector, make sure you have it in your company. And it's very good, Michelle, to implement that. That's a good, guide to follow. But don't wait till. Let's be proactive and not reactive, because the house burned down. We don't, all the food gone. We don't have no clothes to wear. Do you have, where can you go and buy a pair of clothes? Where would you sleep tonight? And we traumatized. So this is time to think about a plan and what we could do. Because for the first 2 weeks, we could be like, I don't even know what to do. I don't even know how to do it. I don't know, will your job give you a day or two off, or 2 weeks? Can you afford to be off from work 2 weeks if you working on commission, or if you don't get paid if you go to work? The persons who are with COVID, they don't, it's 2 weeks off, no pay. They're not covering COVID. What do you do? So put that plan in place, okay? Okay, good. Very, very, very good. Very, very good. Okay, so we will pick this up next week, and hopefully a lot of y'all have a productive week and retain. This was a lot of information, but sleep on it and let's see what happens throughout the week, and hopefully we can retain some of this. Okay, last 2 chapters next week, and then we go into review. Okay, so have a great weekend, and the persons who want to ask questions can stay on, and we'll pick this up again next week. Okay, be safe in the call.
Thank you, you too.
Yes.
Likewise. Bye-bye.
Okay, good day.
Good day.
Good day.
Hi, Ms. Bullard.
Hi.
Okay, so my question is regarding the research paper. So the very first class that we had, I had gotten signed on about 20 minutes late. I was having computer issues, so I think I missed some of your input on different things we should ensure the paper had. I caught the part about you talking about case studies, I think it was, and giving, I guess, relative examples to indicate that you understood the principle of what was being asked. Is that correct?
Yes, but
Okay, so
again, it's recorded, so anything you would have missed, you should be able to
I
go
had
and listen to the recording.
I had messaged Mr. Pratt twice asking for it. I don't know if he just wasn't getting my messages, but I
No,
never.
but he sent instructions in the link. In the link.
Okay,
He
so
emailed it.
I'll double check then and listen to it. And then if I
Mhm.
still have a question, I'll send you an email.
Okay,
Okay.
thank
Mr.
you.
Pratt.
Ms. Ford, I had a question. In your, on the final exam, you have 15 multiple choice questions and 7 essay questions. The essay questions, will they require the same 1,000 to 1,200 words?
No, it's just okay. So the essay question for homework is open book, of course, just like ICA. And so ICA requires 3,500 words. So we just want you to get into practice with the word count for homework. But on the exam, you write 10 points, and each one of those questions are worth 10 points. So you write a page and a half to notes.
Okay. So no word count per se.
Yeah, there's no word.
Content.
So your hand will fall off. I mean, with 7 essays, persons, their hands just be falling off. And I say, don't write the day before. Try to let your hand rest and take the day off and, get study days and what have you. So, yeah.
Why? I guess because of it's a test. You wouldn't allow a person to bring their laptop to actually type the answers.
Oh, no. The only thing you can bring is your keys, and the test is going to be recorded. And so I had to put persons out before, so we'll go through all of that when we get to the review class, all the rules.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Okay, great. You too. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right.